It's a guy, a car, and a podcast.
It's a guy, a car, and a podcast.
It's a guy, a car, and a podcast.
It's a guy, a car, and a podcast. Buckle up. The footage, like, it's not about where I start. It's about, like, when we get started. And that's like...
What are you using to edit?
iMovie. Because I do it all through either right here on this device, or I airdrop it over to an iPad that I have because you get a little more access, a little easier to do stuff. Or iPhone sometimes too, depending if I want to like upload it to Instagram or something. Sometimes I can chop it through there.
I'm excited to see the end result. I'll end up sharing it on the. Oh well, our first edit. No, unless you want to show that, I'm okay with it.
Lighter right over there.
I mean, it's legal in this state, so.
My girlfriend. She's very beautiful. Thank you, baby.
Yeah, just
all right, do you do an intro?
We're here together.
Do you do like
not here?
Hey,
no.
what's going on? Oh, so you
because
start up, or you say this is
there's
like...
two different things that are happening here. This, although this will be the audio feed for that, like I'll glue this audio feed on the
because
video
that one's
of that.
distant, that one's...
Yeah, exactly. This is the podcast. So this feed is what's going to go up in like iTunes and all that stuff. This is going on YouTube. So on the podcast, I do, it's a guy, a car, and a podcast, which means when I leave here, on the drive home, I record like a little 8-minute intro. I'm like, hey, just talking to my buddy Mark. Here's where he comes from. Here's how we know each other. This is going to be fun, blah, blah. And then I glue it on the front of that and then comes the podcast. This is new. I did this for the first time last night with Kristen Taylor and Andy Higgins, her boyfriend. Yeah. We did video of it.
They were home long enough for you to get...
Barely. It took us like a month and a half
did
to
I
like
come,
really
Did I come up
together.
anywhere in their
Yeah.
conversation? Probably.
Yeah. Because of her like intro into sound.
Yeah.
So we did this, and their episode's going to be the first YouTube version of this. Yours is going to be the second. And it's not going to be the same as the podcast. Like, it's just going to come right into us talking. And then what I'll probably do is at the back end of it, like I'll drop in the podcast logo with the outro music.
And then the whole...
I don't know, maybe like widgets for like Instagram and Facebook.
I really want to see how you do that. Like, if I can just get enough time. And as you see, like tonight... as soon as we get done recording and everything, or whenever we've had enough, we're booking it off to a show. Spencer Golish, has Marie said, hey, by the way, you remember we're judging tonight karaoke contest? And I'm like, oh, are we really? Yeah, that's that tonight. And then this weekend, I'm off to California. I'm hosting an AMA national event for motocross. But yeah, that's all kinds of things. All right, I'll be right back.
Take your time.
Let me, I gotta switch. They stink. I mean, you'll be like, God dang.
One of the first things that Kristen said when we like cut it after like an hour and a half, 2 hours of talking. After she was just like, oh, I had a lot of fun. So she was just like, we got to do this again. There's so much we didn't talk about.
Yeah,
I was like, well, that's kind of how these go. Like,
and this one probably isn't going to be any different.
Such a natural progression. It's like I'm glad we didn't get to half the crap because we had a good time talking about what we did. All right, you're comfy. Let me just double check where you physically are. Wonderful. My favorite.
In this angle, I've learned how to look at the lens. It looks like I'm good on the top. Looks like linear lineup probably about here, so I'm still kind of more centered. But
I mean, we got it basically all the way to the end of the couch. You are within, a foot or so to the end of the frame. Like you're at the end of the frame. And I did that because if we get a visitor, I don't have to fix. Like, all we have to do is move some pillows.
Hey,
and she'll be super edge of the frame. Yeah. And I don't have to think about it.
Well, let's get started. Let's get your deal. I'm excited.
When I first started doing this, you were top 5. One of the people that I wanted to talk to. No kidding.
So top 5. Who are top 5 then?
Well, now I've nailed one of them. I have interviewed one of them.
Yeah.
Kristen Taylor was on that list. Who I walk through all of them yet? I wanted to. Some of them I don't talk to anymore.
Yeah.
Some of them are like past bandmates.
So they'll stay top 5 because...
In a weird way, where it's like, if maybe someday, if some of this, like, just bad stuff, you know, goes away and we start talking again, I would love to sit down and talk with them because I have a huge history with them. They have a huge history before me. Some of them, like, for example, I was in this band called The Afterlight, and it was kind of a mini super group in the sense of, like, other Mesa bands that weren't together anymore and just sections of them turning into this band. When we were recording demos for what was going to be actually our second album. We already had the first one in the can, and we were just mixing it and getting ready to send it off to master. But we were starting songwriting for the second record, and one of the members of the band had an aunt. No, his mom had a cabin in Heber, Arizona, like just gorgeous foresty area and stuff. And so he was like, why don't we like go up to Heber for like a few days and just write? Like, you know, we've heard of bands doing this. Like, we have the capacity to, because I just happen to have this, you know, connection to a cabin. So we were going up there, and I thought, we need to tell the story of this. Because we'd been a band at that point, like, a year. And obviously we had this record coming out. And you know, it was a cool thing. And people were noticing it, and people were enjoying what we were doing. So I was like, we got to tell this story. So I was like, I'm going to shoot some footage while we're up there, and I'm going to sit all of you down, interview style, individually, and I'm going to have you tell all your stories.
Oh,
like
wow.
of how we got here, and then later I'll edit it all together with footage of you and your old bands and old pictures,
Nice.
and it'll just be like a little documentary. So I went up there, and I sat down with each of them. It was so weird, because like I was kind of director and interviewer, but
That's hard
in
to do.
some cases,
Production,
the
directing.
their story was like talking about me. Like
Yeah.
me and Jeff used to be in the Heartless together and stuff, and so what I said is, if you can remember this and if it's not too awkward, when you talk about me in the third person. Don't be like, and you, man, remember when I met you? Be like, oh, when I met Adam? So like,
Yeah, so that way, yeah.
and it worked. It was fine.
That's funny.
The weird thing is that hard drive that had all... I actually did sit down with a friend of mine had built this computer that was basically just for like heavy gaming, but it had great graphics cards and it had just a ton of RAM and stuff. I'm like, hey, can I come over some weekend and just like lock myself in that room for hours and hours and hours and like edit and see how much I can get done? So I did. I went over for like, I don't know, 3 days of a weekend, like 12 hours a day kind of thing back there. And I ended up editing together like 10 to 12 minutes of what essentially would be the film. I showed it to a couple of the band members, one of which it was actually about, and they really liked it, and I was like, hey, this could go well. And then that hard drive, like, crashed. Or like it was one of those older, the disc kind that aren't
Not
as
a solid
fun.
thing,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So,
And those go
lost
quick.
it. Lost it all. So that
no.
that effort. So it's, in some ways, like, doing this kind of stuff, I'm prepared for moments where, even though I know I hit the record button, I know it's filming us right now, I'm prepared for, like, the battery to go dead, and the thing doesn't, and we won't have the footage, or this thing gonna, and just have to, like, be like, well, oh well, I guess we'll have to get together and do another one, 'cause whatever.
I guess that's kind of the risk in pod or recording, or you know, you don't think about it because you cling to that one recording. You know, we've all had examples of that. You cling to the recording, or you have it saved. I mean, there's my stack of hard drives over there. There's 6 over there right now. 6. Well, there's probably 2 more. Probably doubled up and everything. And then downstairs, I got 3 in a bag. There's 1 in this bag. You know what? I've been digitized since the earliest, like I'm saying mid-90s.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, I had a computer. I started building supercomputers back in the early days, just mostly for gaming. And but then as I got into music, and I had to make up for a lack of talent. You know, I don't have a lot of. I mean, I'm not saying I don't have any talent. I'm sure there's some talent, to do the singing. But everything I've had to do is I've had to learn, or I've had to have a stronger work ethic. So I had to learn how my lack of talent could still get me to where I wanted to be. So at the time I was an IT tech at Intel, making pretty good money. You know, I'm making $75,000 to $100,000 a year.
What year was this?
They were talking 94, 95, and I was still young. I was, 24 to 25 in there. And so I saw what was going to happen. And my first program I ever got was Acid. It wasn't Acid Pro. It was an Acid version that you can buy at Best Buy. And I started dabbling in it, but then I saw a need to burn CDs and hard drive space. And, you know, back in the day, like a 500 gigabyte hard drive was huge. You know,
Yeah.
It's hard to do it because everything was recorded, you know, at a much lower, you know, baud rate and resolution just was super tiny. We were still recording. We didn't even have MP4 yet, you know.
Yeah.
So I had to just watch the whole thing kind of evolve. So there's things in there back from the earliest days. I actually still have a spindle of CDs somewhere that has all the CDs, because I was like burning CDs back in the day, and that was unheard of.
Yeah.
You know, I was burning CDs when they actually were burning. In other words, the CD was a bare mylar.
It wasn't
steel.
like magnetized. It was like heat.
Right. Yeah.
Really?
It's heat. The laser actually created heat to put the ones and zeros in to the mylar, and you could actually.
Is that why they called it Laserdisc? Because back in those days, it was a laser.
Well, they are still laser, but
the
laser was much more intense, and the mylar.
Oh.
See, what people don't get about is digital. It never degradates. Digital is always ones and zeros. You know, always. So as long as the ones and zeros don't disappear, you would never have a problem with your digital signal. Like people say, well, I transferred this to this, and it didn't sound that good. Well, if it didn't sound good, it didn't sound good over here. If it ever gets transferred into analog, you've lost your digital connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you've transferred it to analog, and now all you did was transfer to analog. That's what that does, is it transfer to analog, and then it goes into digital.
Mm.
So, but if you start off analog, you transfer to, that's what you're doing. You're transferring analog signal to digital.
Yeah.
And if at any point it becomes analog again, you just keep transferring back and forth, and you lose fidelity, you lose a lot of stuff. But if it stays digital the whole path to the very last one, it's just as good as it recorded. That's one of the beauties about digital. But
I think about that every time I move a file from like the iPhone to my laptop, then to an external hard drive, and maybe back to the laptop or back to an iPhone for whatever. Is just like. What is getting lost in the transfer, if anything? Like,
well, then the last thing is sound processing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like, if you have an MPEG file in MP3, and you put it in, let's say Apple, and it has its own program. Well, it uses the same data, but now how does it process to get it to your final output?
Mm-hmm.
So that may sound different than if you put it on your PC and use a Windows Media Player, and then it sounds different. And you sit there and you go, why does it sound different? I'm playing it on the same system. Well, that's because the processing that program is using is different from your Apple. It's using the same ones and zeros, but the final output will always sound different. Well, not always, but I'm saying if you do get...
So like the program that you're using, whether it be Windows Media Player, QuickTime...
still has to be processed.
All those, like, depending on the level of processing of that, may actually impact the output sound.
The raw file, or what you've always heard, the raw file is always ones and zeros. It doesn't get better ones and zeros over on this computer. Or I've got a $14 million computer, and my ones and zeros are better. No, your ones and zeros are seriously just on or off. It doesn't.
Which is really interesting when you even think about frequency of sound, like with stuff like dubstep, where it's still ones and zeros, and yet the signal that it is sending to whatever speaker that it's sending that signal to is of such a depth of frequency that it can cause that.
Well, now that's a complete different thing. I mean, now that goes back to the earliest days of recording. Is what part of the frequencies are you recording, no matter how you're recording, either through analog or through digital. And that's another thing that people don't understand, is they say, well, this sounds so much better in my car, but it sounds like shit in my computer. Well, yeah, most computers, when you're at home, you're playing through, at best, a 4-inch cone that does not produce, let's say, 40, 50 megahertz, low frequency. At best, it'll probably get under about 100. Yeah. So it doesn't produce those rich lows. That's actually why I chose this particular system. He says, well, that looks like a boombox. I said, well, it is a boombox. And the reason I chose this particular system for this studio is that it's a two-way system. Mm-hmm. So the bass frequency is separate from the highs. So it actually sends bass, and it's not distorted by having, it produces the bass, and that's it. It doesn't produce the mid. The mid's produced by the upper cone. So that way your bass is nice and clean. So it's probably crossed over to about 180 megahertz. You've heard the term crossed over. And you can have a 2-way crossover, 3-way crossover, and this we could go on and on about sound. So that's a podcast all by itself. But those are things again. Lack of talent. I didn't go to school. I had to learn how to do that. So
well, you say you didn't go to school, and yet what dumped you at 24, 25 years old in a high-paying IT job?
Well, that's beautiful. That's another hour story too. But let's give you the short version. Okay. So, you've heard the term "fake it till you make it."
Yeah.
And when I was young, I had dreams and aspirations. I lived in a little hick town. My girlfriend Marita, she's been down there and she's seen where I come from. She's also from a small town out in Delaware, Magnolia, Delaware, and small town. She literally lived like I'm gonna say 100 feet from the main stoplight in her town. She actually worked in the restaurant right across the street from her house. So kind of a bummer if she didn't show up for work. They're like, "Hey, I see your car there. Look at there. Pass over." I know you're over there. I can see your lights on in your room. Get over here. I'm there. I'm not quite from that small of a town, but kind of.
Where are you from?
So I'm from Modesto, California.
Okay.
Born and
I've
raised.
been through there.
I lived there for 21 years. I never had any aspiration to get out of there until I got a taste of Arizona. I came out here to visit my brother on Thanksgiving, and I'm like, Mark, there's a whole other planet out here, and not just in Arizona. I'm saying out.
Yeah.
But I fell in love with Arizona because at the time I was obsessed by dirt bikes, and the same thing, no talent. So I had to ride, 4 or 5 times a week just to race these bikes, and my real love, my number one love of what I love, believe it or not, this may surprise you, as a longtime friend of mine, is airplanes. Like I'm an airplane buff. Like I know way more about airplanes than I should at somebody who doesn't fly. I'm not a pilot, you know what I mean?
Is that what you loved about them? You wanted to fly? Or still do?
I did. In high school I wanted to become a pilot for the Navy. You know what I mean? I was obsessed by the Blue Angels.
Wow.
Totally obsessed by the jet airplanes. World War II fighters, like the Corsair, the P-51.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite airplane of all time is the B-17 Boeing Flying Fortress. B-29 is a close second. Well, no, probably P-51. But anyhow,
did you ever nerd out enough to do like models and stuff?
I built them professionally for a while. I actually built them for the boxes, so I'd build them and send them off. Yeah.
Oh, the models.
You
would construct a model and send it off to wherever. Wow.
Or I build them for local places. I build them for our high school. I would lock myself in the room and build aircraft, just going crazy.
Wow.
And I started building Star Wars models because in 1977 that was huge.
Yeah.
And I actually got to see all 3 of the first 3 movies. I saw the very first showing. And when I say the very first showing, I was at Chinese Man Theater when George Lucas dropped the very first one. We were at the very first show. We actually sat right behind all the actors, and they were no-namers. The only one we knew out of all the actors was Harrison Ford. Because he had starred in American Graffiti. And American Graffiti was written about Modesto, California.
Was it really?
Well, George Lucas was born and raised in Modesto, California.
I've never seen it. I'm just aware of it because of film culture. But
and in fact, that cruise, they coined that Modesto, California. I'm sure it was happening all around, in California, but it really became a hot item in Modesto, California. And as I grew up, I started building mini trucks and started putting stereos in them. So that's where my love for frequencies and things started. In what is now known to be called signal processing, whether you use high frequency, high impedance or low impedance. A lot of engineers don't even know what that means.
I've heard the term enough, but I have no idea what impedance means.
So basically an XLR, a lot of people don't know this, but an XLR uses a low wattage. It uses less than 3 watts and less than a volt. So it's very low. This is low impedance. So it uses a very low impedance. Anything else, a 1/4 inch, an RCA, and that's high impedance. So it's very important. The reason why this stayed low impedance is a hyperchordated mic like this uses power, phantom power. It has to have power to
which
actually
is the
resonate.
48V is 48 volts.
48 volt.
Okay.
That's correct. So see, it pops that volt up quite a bit. It actually powers the microphone.
Got it.
But if you have a non-chordoid microphone, a dynamic mic, they plug right in, and dynamic is you're just moving that diaphragm and the vibration is translated through a magnet, and this cable has to detect that movement. So that's why it's such low frequency, such low impedance, because it's so quiet. So you have to really boost that to get that. But that's why you get some really rich sounds, and that's why you get feedback when it's live. The balance of your signal processing is very, very, very important. So when you have high impedance coming in, now you have a stronger signal. You have a thicker fidelity, thicker signal, thicker fidelity, more warmth. Yeah. You have a broader signal, and that gives you most everything you do nowadays is mostly high impedance. So that's where you hear the high Z and low Z. That's all that means is high impedance and low impedance. Yeah, listen again. As far as sound, now you have to think about this. All that stuff I had to learn. But anyhow, back to being in Modesto. Yeah, we used to build these systems in our cars. Like for me, it was my truck of choice was a Toyota SR5, a 1982 SR5. I actually cut a hole behind the seat, just a regular cab short bed truck. I actually cut a hole in the seat and I put two 18-inch Orions in one box that filled the whole bed. I put a huge amplifier. Back in the day, I probably had like a 800 watt. I had a Hyphonics.
800 watts.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that was huge back in the day.
Like the PA I use for my gigs is only 400.
Yeah.
Like,
well, wattage again. We can go into that. Wattage is a whole nother thing. That wattage is it's kind of false. RMS and actual wattage and everything and what's called program or peak. There's so many things that wattage is kind of misleading. Like I love the people that they have 10 1,000 watt amplifiers and they say, yeah, we got 10,000 watts of power. No, you have the max of whatever 1 amp is 1,000, but you have it times 10. It's not, that doesn't mean you have 10,000 watts. That means you have 1,000 watts 10 times over. And that means because any speaker is still only putting out 1,000 watts. Because you don't take 10,000 watts and put it into one speaker. Yeah. See what I'm saying? I mean, although there are speakers, I think there's one called like the Godfather or something. It will handle like 3,000 watts of power. But, it's a 200-pound driver with like a 8-inch voice coil. It's pretty.
So
pretty
I mean,
big.
To put this into perspective, a festival, something like like Coachella or something like that. The systems that they're using, those big where they have the speakers hanging and they kind of hang in that little like J-shaped sort of thing.
They call that a line array.
Okay, what level of wattage is feeding into something like that?
So that's a very interesting question. If we're going down
that path. We're talking about the Godfather, and I'm just trying to think like
a line array system, a line array, and this is my understanding because again, no class, no course taught me this.
I assumed you'd worked on stuff like that.
I have.
Okay.
And actually, I'm gonna give my shout out to Kristen Taylor because she's the one that actually got me the job. She ended up, as she told you in her podcast last night, she ended up wanting to become a sound engineer, so she came and trained with me. So everybody says, well, I taught her everything she knows. No, I didn't teach her everything she knows. I taught her what she needed to. I always tell her this. I taught you what you needed to know, and you took it from there, and you took off. And man, she did. She started working at all the major clubs, and took it a lot farther than I did. I was kind of wanting to get out of it at that point. After our band broke up, I really didn't have a lot of drive. She turned to me and said, "Hey, I need a monitor man for a festival we're doing downtown. You want to do it?" And I said, "Yeah, no problem." And I walked in flip flops and shorts and said, "Yeah, I'm sure I can run that. I've never ran that board in my life, So I'm saying, "Okay, Mark, better get home and watch these YouTube videos." And she said, "Yeah, I'm running the DM5. So I'm thinking, you can't run a fucking DM5. And I'm looking down at the MC47, the Yamaha board, and I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to run it. But I said, yeah. I said, I'll learn it. I turned to the guy that ran this company. I said, yeah, I can run it. And I had to run home and learn how to do it. Because, well, a mixer's a mixer. They all operate, but oddly enough, when you see a big one, it's still the same as any little one you got. Just a lot more knobs and a lot more tunability. Yeah. But the basic operation is still the same. But anyhow, back to your question. So it goes back to processing again. Okay, so how they process the amps. You have multiple amps. The amp of choice for a long time was the Crown Max series. Okay. So what you did was you put them in through a series of cables, and the speakers are always a load. Like, in other words, say an 8 ohm load or 4 ohm load. You've heard that.
Also
now,
familiar with ohms.
So as the
like
number
the
goes
guitar
up,
cabinets and stuff,
perfect.
it has like 8 ohm or 16
That's correct.
ohm.
So as the
inputs
number
and all
goes
that, yeah.
up, this is again, it's a little deceiving, but as the number goes up, like if you go 8 ohm, 16 ohm, or even 32 ohm, or up and up,
Uh-huh.
that's actually less of a load. As it goes down, that's more of a load. So if you have a cabinet with 4 ohm speakers and you run 2 of them, the amp will actually be seeing 1 ohm. Then the amp has to be stable at less than 1 ohm to add more speakers. So what you'd really do is the rule of thumb that I've learned through the years is you never want to add more than 4 speakers per an amp. Okay? Now, that's kind of, again, misleading, because if you have 16 ohm speakers, which isn't very, very rare, but these speakers can change their ohm load, so you can there's 2 ways to wire, either through series or through running through parallel. Okay. And if you run through parallel, you're absolutely cut off at 4, because if you go more, then you're going to burn your amp, and that's where the amp is working too hot, or when you come up to the amp and it's really hot, and that's what kills an amplifier's heat. And what will mostly create heat is distortion, and distortion is what causes everything. But anyhow, those multiple line arrays, what they do is they'll have just the right amount of amplifiers to handle the load of the speakers. But then you have to this is where the processing comes in, but then you have to tell the amplifiers how much of the load are they going to carry of those speakers. You have to tell the speakers the same thing. How much of that wattage are they going to get from these amplifiers? And that's generally all determined as you build the system and how you set the processor up on those big systems. Like, I believe the system, I forget the name of it, don't quote me on this, but I think it was called a DDR-128, I think. And what I heard is there's only 2 systems like that in North America, and we had one of them. We ran it at Sturgis, like on the main stage. So if you picture that, for a whole week. But the ohm load is very important. So when you see a big speaker when you see a big array like that, and at Sturgis, we ran 12 dual 18 cabinets per side for subs, and they were huge. I mean, they were very stable under 1 ohm. The amps we had to them were just unbelievable. The system was it's one of the loudest systems in the world. So when you go to Coachella and all those big things, that's how they get away with that. And then the funniest thing in the world is they put a dipstick DJ up there that has no idea how to send a signal up there. So, and I'm gonna step out on a limb here without any kind of numbers, but 90% of musicians don't even know what that means. They don't even know how to.
I'm one sitting here right now that has no idea what this thing is.
Yeah, and it kind of bothers me because that's what I learned first. Then I learned how to become a singer and a performer and everything. And I walked in and I'd tell everybody what I want, but if they didn't do it, I didn't care if it sounded good enough. That's why you remember all our sound check. Okay, you take a little bass out, I'm good. Let's rock and roll. I didn't care if it was good enough. It's good enough. And my attitude was, let this guy run his system. I'm not going to go there. Although several of our shows we went to, with the exception, I don't know if you played Martini Ranch with us, but when we played Martini Ranch, we had Pat Hoffman mixing for us. And I will never forget doing sound check, and the guys go, "Do you want to do another song?" And I go, "No." I'm like, what do we need to change? I want to do another song just to hear how awesome it sounds. And I literally looked over at Pat Hoffman, and I go, "Oh my God, it sounds so awesome." I thought if there was ever a day I was going to cream on stage, that would have been it.
Like, I get why that venue went down, but I don't know why people with, power and money didn't fight harder. Like, that venue, location, sound system, that venue was a premier venue.
I agree. And I don't think it was, I've played hundreds of shows there from DJing. I played at Cypress Hill there. I played with Mick Yavelon there a few times. I played with, I forget how many acts I played with there. And it was all thanks to Donnie Johnson, Donnie Johnson I met really early in life. And
Did you meet through the pub?
Yeah, through Big Fish Pub. And I met him really early, and we just hit it off as friends. And everybody said they were Donnie Johnson's friend, but I was like, well, no, I've actually known Donnie for.
I've only been in his presence socially once. A friend of mine, Brad Park, he was the drummer for a band called Two Dimes, he was just such a gregarious, just a fun dude, that he was like really palsy with a lot of people. And we go to this bar at one point, and Donnie's just up at the bar. Just I don't think I'd even seen him at this point. I feel like this was before Grind. Yeah, it would have been, because this was years before Grind. And so we go up. No, we went up, and like he was buying everybody beers, and I would drink, and he was just like, "You want a beer?" I'm like, "No." I was just trying not to I was trying not to act uncool, and for people to just kind of like shoulder me out of the circle. But just listening to him like tell stories about going to Australia and surfing and about like banging, famous chicks. And I'm like, who are you? And then years later, ironically, when we're in Grind, we ended up I ended up getting double booked, where I was playing bass and singing in Grind, and I was fronting the Foo Fighters thing, and we were at Marquee Theater, and I was actually my personal life was just in shambles. I was going through a divorce. We just got evicted out of a place, and the tickets that I was supposed to sell were in the place that the sheriff locked up. And so I get to Marquee, and I got nothing, and
we made it.
Some people went in and they talked to Donnie, and they brought me in to talk to him, like Godfather style. They were just like, all right, we talked to him, and you're cool, but you owe him a beer. And I sat there, and I talked to him for just a couple of seconds, and he's like, we've all been there, man. I get it. It's cool. Just we've got those tickets marked. If they show up, we'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. But I was like, this is the first time that you're acknowledging me as a human being, and it's under negative. It sucks.
I'm sorry, Donnie. Don't kill me. Don't stuff me under the stage. Yeah, no, Donnie Johnson, definitely very influential in the music industry. I can't say I owe my music career to him, because my music career as a DJ was taken off. In fact, that's how Donnie and I really became friends. He had a girlfriend at the time. Her name was Julie, and Julie had heard me play. I think she was out or something, and then Donnie had said, "Yeah, I know that guy." So Donnie and Julie would actually come to my shows. So Donnie and I just kind of stayed friends. And if I drove by the Big Fish Pub, he used to, at the time, he would drive this big old white Dodge Ram, a big old long bed king cab with a camper shell on it, and park it right out front, or sometimes he'd park it on the side. And if I drove by at 3 o'clock, getting done with my gigs, and I saw the Dodge Ram still there, I'd go knock on the door. He'd go, "What? Who is it?" I go, "It's me, motherfucker, let open the door," And Donnie and I would sit there at Big Fish Pub, and we'd drink. He had a Golden Tee video game in there, and we'd sit there and drink until fucking 4 or 5 in the morning. Back in the day, everything was cut off at 1. So if he was still there working, I'd knock on the door, and we'd drink, and we'd play Golden Tee. And man, I mean, I'm surprised my marriage lasted as long as it did, thanks to Donnie Johnson. Because I'd come home at 4 or 5 in the morning drunk, and she used to think I was out cheating on her. I'm like, yeah, I'm not cheating on you. Yeah, I'm cheating on you with Donnie Johnson.
So maybe you can clear this up, because Kristen and I sort of skipped over the top of it, but maybe just timeline-wise, to get us from 24 and an IT job to Donnie Johnson. You said you were DJing at the time. Did you go straight from the IT thing?
Okay, so
you said there was dirt biking. There's a lot of things that
so I came here just on a ring and a prayer. I didn't have a plan in Modesto, California. This guy believed in me. He just saw that I was kind of smarter than. I'm not saying I'm smart. I'm just saying maybe I was 2 clicks ahead of anybody else. Out of the 300 clicks, I was at least 2 up. And this guy hired me to install cell phones and car alarms and stuff. So he sent me to all this schooling, which included, back in the day, to sell cell phones or even to program cell phones, you had to have an FCC license. So
really,
he ended up getting me an FCC license. And yeah, because I was programming cellular telephones back in the day.
I mean, you're talking about older ones than I did, but in the
in
the early 2000s, I was programming cell phones as a Radio Shack employee, because you had to plug in the stuff into your Motorola StarTAC, whatever the garbage was.
No, that's the same thing.
Okay.
So the program I'm talking about: access override, your priority call, your number, your number assignment module, which is called an AM, your ESN, your electronic serial number. You had to program that all into the phone had the ESN in it, but. So anyhow, there was only a handful of guys that were doing it in California, and this guy invested in me, so I became his star employee. So I was still racing dirt bikes and stuff, so when I started racing dirt bikes, I just kept going. I wanted to go to every race I could go to. I didn't care where it is. I'd drive. I would leave work Friday at 3 o'clock and drive all the way to Texas just to race a race. I'd drive all night and barely make it there for a race Saturday or Sunday. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But anyhow, so when I visited Arizona, I saw the dirt bike scene out here. So my brother's roommate said, "Hey, come live with us. We got an extra room, so you can move down." So I saw an opportunity and I took it.
Yeah.
And I quit my job. I put everything in storage. I put every bit of clothes I could stuff into a sea bag because I had tried to go into the Navy and I failed. I mean, I failed. There's so no stolen valor. I was never a veteran or anything. I kind of given up one dream to kind of do what was in my plate.
Uh-huh.
So with all that knowledge, when I got here in 90, 91, somewhere in there, cell phones were still big. Okay, so I mean, in other words, they were just getting big to where, like you said, they were just becoming a StarTAC.
Yeah.
I had what was called a Motorola PT300. I actually still have the phone. It's actually right here in that box. Yeah, I still have it, and it still works. Kind of funny, but but I worked for Cellular One at the time, and then I ended up getting picked up by a company. It was US West. That became Quest. That became Century.
Yep.
And I was one of their I was one of there was probably only 4 or 5 people in Arizona programming phones other than the Radio Shack nerds. I didn't mean that with all due. I was a nerd too, so I just didn't work at Radio Shack. So man, I started, I worked in the Mecca. I met this guy named Ted Phipps. He owned a mailbox store right next to Long Wong's downtown Tempe. Now, if you know anything about Long Wong's, the refreshments, Jim Blossoms, all the big names back in the day, August Red, Dead Hot Workshop. I mean, I could sit here and go on and on and on about the OGs. Meat Puppets. I mean, again, I got some of their CDs right there, actually, back in the day, because I pulled some of them out. But anyhow, they were... the Long Ones was the premier music venue in all of Arizona, as far as I was concerned. And I was literally right next door to them, like door to door.
Yeah.
There was only a small alley that separated us. So I was selling cell phones and pagers. And I was making way too much money as a 25-year-old kid that just got out here to Arizona. And I'd go next door and that was my watering hole. I'd have some chicken wings. They were voted the best chicken wings in all of Arizona. And I'd watch bands like the Refreshments, the Meat Puppet, all those bands. And
wow.
And I dabbled in drumming, and I have to say dabbled.
So what year was all this?
So 91, 92, somewhere in there. And so anyhow, to try to get to the story, so that well kind of dried up because Ted Phipps and I kind of had a falling out. He didn't want to pay me the money that I was making, because he was still making great money because he made all the residuals on the phones that I sold, but he had to pay me, he had to pay me almost $300 for every phone I sold. So you got to think about it. If I was to sell a phone or two a day, I'd make $300, $600. My record, I think I sold four phones in one day.
Wow.
So I was making sick money, especially back in the day. $400 was a lot of money. So I continued racing and everything. But right behind there, I met this girl, and we ended up getting married and having a kid and everything. It was a. I mean, I should have never got married. You know what I mean? And I didn't marry her because I was dead in love with her. I married her because I thought she'd make a good wife, and we won't talk about that in this podcast because
that's understandable though.
Yeah, she's it's whatever, and it was just as much my fault as her fault, but whatever. But anyhow, things kept going, and I ended up getting a job at Intel. And how I got the job at Intel is kind of ironic because I had that experience in cell phones and everything. I did computers before I left Modesto. I had taken a college class, and the problem is they saw that I was brighter than most, so I started working in the lab. They actually hired me to teach computer science 101. And I again, no teaching experience, no experience in computers, just what I knew, but I just taught the curriculum as they taught me. And so when I moved out here, got the tech job at running my own deal here. Yeah. And then I saw this job at Intel as an IT tech, and I think, well, it can't be that hard. It's just basically, plugging in computers to get them to the network, and wireless wasn't big back in the day, and I already understood wireless. Everything was all done through 10-base-T and Ethernet, ThinNet, and I showed up. I'll never forget this. I showed up at Intel, and as I walked in, at the time I had long hair, and I pulled everything back in a ponytail, put on a golf shirt, and headed out to my interview. And I showed up there, and when I got there, everybody was in suits, briefcase. I'm sitting around, looking around, going, and there's like 200 people there. So I'm sitting there going, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, I'm 24, 25 years old. I'm not getting this fucking job. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I'm way outclassed. So I sat there, and the whole time I sat there, which was probably only 30 minutes to an hour, and the whole time I sat there, I was telling myself, are you gonna just get the fuck out of here? You're just wasting your fucking time, And so finally, I got the balls to stand up and walk out. And as I walked out, Mark Wright, I went, "Oh fuck!" So I was like, "Fuck it," I said, "Let's go see what questions are, so I'll be prepared for the next one." I never thought in a million years. So I sat the fuck down, and they grilled me, and the questions were just pretty much normal questions, And the last one was, "Why would we hire you?" And I said, "Well, I come from a cellular background, and I learned all that on my own. I had certain classes, but I had to run with it, and as it changed, I had to learn what was changing and make the changes." And again, I looked at him and said, I don't mean to waste your guys' time, but as I look out there, and I'm probably not the one you guys need or whatever. So I got home, and they had called me and said, "Yeah, we're going to go with you." And I ended up getting the job, and I was blown away on the offer, and so I took it. But there's a lot of politics and things in blue collar jobs, and I guess I was still always driven to be an entrepreneur, because it's very hard to work for somebody and do their rules. And what was hardest for me, and it's always the hardest, it's still things I still battle with it. I'm coming up on 50 years old, but is people making money off my talents. If I'm the one doing the work, then I should make the lion's share. I'm down with you being the guy that puts the money into the lights and the building we're in, but just make that money and make enough for you. Don't drive off in your Porsche when I'm the guy driving off in a VW, or in a Geo, a Geo with a cracked block. And I'm the guy that's doing all the hard work. So it was always hard to keep.
That Geo was awesome, though.
Oh, dude, God, that's back.
I love that it fit my entire base rig in it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. I remember I loved it. I remember there was a certain way you had to have it in there.
Yeah.
That's right. That's funny. I got a car. Marita's car. She has a Kia Rio, which is one of their smaller cars. Not their smallest, but it's one of their small. Yeah, we have stuffed that thing with a full PA. Because I'm surprised we didn't stuff drums in there and everything else. But no, if you're creative, you can really do a lot. Yeah. So anyhow, after that, I walked into a karaoke show, and at the time I was jamming with this guy named Gary Spears, and he was one of my. I hired him to sell cell phones for me. So he said, "Hey, I noticed you play drums. You should come over and play. I got a drum set." And he played guitar, so we just play all these songs. We just jam. We were horrible. I mean, we sucked. But he had a sister that was one. Back in the early '90s, there was only a handful of karaoke hosts that would invest in those discs, because those discs were about $30 a pop back in the day, which is a lot of money. And you had to have the original DK 100 discs. So you kind of got them, and as they came out, you kept buying them. And then there would be another company was Sound Choice back in the day, so you'd buy all those discs. But anyhow. I had dabbled in karaoke before I left Modesto, just because I've always aspired to sing, but never took it seriously. And then when I walked into that show, it was at a bar over here in Chandler. It's now called Jolie's. I forget what it was called back in the day, but I remember the guy that owned it. He got his head cut off by his wife. But anyhow, yeah, I think he cheated on her or something, so she cut his head off and threw him in the dumpster behind his bar. But I would do karaoke in there, and I would tell Shelly, I'd be like, "Hey, can I adjust some things, because these are some things I've learned throughout the years," and I'd adjust it. She goes, "Wow, that sounds really good, And then she'd hear me sing, and, I still wasn't really that good back in the day. I was just loving it. Yeah. And I just wanted to do it as a hobby. And then she said, "Hey, you should host for me. I always have other shows." Well, I took it to the next level. I just said, "Hey, how about I rent your equipment and I go out and get my own shows?" She said, "No problem." So basically, she was letting her equipment work for nothing. I just come bring her equipment back, hand her some money. So she's like, "I'm going to do this." Yeah. So I just took it to the next level and quit all my jobs, and that's all I did. I started doing karaoke. I did karaoke I'm still doing karaoke to this day. I got one show a week, but I sold my company. But that's how exactly I got started in music. I was DJing. Well, actually, so here's the timeline. So the timeline goes Intel, karaoke, and then a bar I worked for says, "Hey, does your equipment play regular CDs?" I said, "Yeah, it does." They said, "You'd be interested in DJing this Friday?" Suppose sure. You know, I guess I never thought about it, but why not? You know, and I guess I never thought that was another way to make money.
Yeah.
So I went home, grabbed all my CDs, and showed up at the bar Friday night with, you know, just boxes and boxes of CDs, and played whatever music I thought, and people loved it. And then, you know, I already had the mic ability because of through karaoke, so I kind of talk shit and kind of, you know, talk about drinks and stuff. And next thing you know, DJ AdrenaLayne was born. And what's funny is it wasn't DJ AdrenaLayne. It was, my name of the company was AdrenaLayne Entertainment. But people said, hey, I need to have your DJ name. And I'm like, I don't have one, you know. And I suppose it would come to me. And then one bar downtown Mill put me on the bill as DJ AdrenaLayne. And I'm like, hey, that's not my name, you know. But I said, okay, well that's fine, you know, DJ AdrenaLayne. But I still didn't stick it until I was walking downtown. And someone said, hey, you're DJ AdrenaLayne. And I said, wow.
Suppose I
recognize that? I suppose I am. So I was at a karaoke gig. Not too far from where we're at right now. It was down the way. Famous Sam's over here on Southern.
Okay.
It was owned by this cat and his wife, and they were really cool cat. I don't think they're still together anymore. But this band approached me and said, "Hey, you know, we're a band and we like your singing. You want to come sing with us?" And I said, "Yeah." So we started singing. We started writing our own songs, and the band was called Elephant Gun. We actually blew up. We started playing Big Fish Pub, you know, and that's how Donnie and I really inched in. We started playing Priceless down the street here. If you take 8th Avenue right here, Priceless used to be right there. That was our main bar. That was like, you know, every band kind of has their home bar. That was our home bar.
Uh-huh.
We never got to play it Long Longs, but we played at all the other clubs downtown Mill. We played Chandler. We played, you know, we ended up getting some pretty good shows, and thanks to Donnie. Well, we broke up because, you know, I don't know, just feuds and stuff. And
band life is hard.
Band life's crazy. A lot of people. I would never recommend band life unless you got the friends. You know, I didn't mind the cover band because then you're just doing it more for fun and to get paid. You know.
I mean, seriously, like my own anxiety issues and just my own kind of psychological illness makes me sad about grind because as a band of friends, as a band of like guys who could more than stand to be around each other, as well as like talented musicians that could just get up and just dominate any night that they were booked on. Well, it was the band.
You three were way more talented than I was. Let's just put that.
But I mean, between having the Lane thing, like you just had like the rasp, and you could just hit those notes and stuff, and the crowd work. The crowd work was your thing. And it just meant we would all stand there. All of us had, like, senses of humor. All of us had personalities. But none of us had to say a word. Because Mark was just handling the crowd. Handling the ladies. Handling any rowdy guys, hecklers. Like, handling.
I love
and this is fast forward. This is way fast forward in your story. Because grind is way later. But, so going back to Elephant Gun and... Was that all you were doing at the time, or were you still DJing?
DJing and karaoke, and we ended up getting a practice pad right over here off of McClintock, well, as it becomes Hayden, right over here off of the road that just on the other side of the freeway right there. I forget what it's called, but there's storage units, and all us bands were there. I mean, Authority Zero was in there. I mean, you'd see leftover members from Roger Klein and the Refreshments. They were out there playing. You know, Brian Bush. You'd see all the big stars, you know, come there and show up and play. And that's where we just jammed. And we jammed as much as we could we could get together. But I think we were kind of doomed. I actually have some recordings of us if you ever want to hear them. But
I really do.
Yeah, they're kind of bad. They were mastered incorrectly. And
even just to hear melodically, just like what you were doing back then. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, they're fun. Yeah. But then the band kind of broke up, and Donnie was kind of upset because he had some big shows, and he wanted Elephant Gun because we had a good draw. Like we were playing. We didn't have to pay to play at Mason Jar. Let's put it that way. If you're a band that you could say that, if you could say from our very first time playing at Mason Jar, we never had to pay to play, because Franco was very hard to negotiate. Franco would say, here's your tickets, and you're going to sell them or you're not playing, and that means you either, if you didn't sell them, then you go, okay, how many tickets do you expect me to sell? And he'd say 20, and then you fucking whip out 20 times 10 and hand it to him, you know, $200, and then you can play. Yeah. And people would want to play because, again, the Mason Jar was one of the Valley's premier. I mean, if you played at Mason, you know, there's even a website that says, I played at the Mason Jar. You know, I'm sitting there, I learned how to run sound at the Mason Jar, and you know, I played with Kevin Martin there. You know, we can go on, and I saw Guns N' Roses at the Mason Jar. You know. I saw a lot of bands at the Mason Jar, but so ended up also at that time I hooked up with Michael Nitro, and Michael Nitro was using me to be a drum tech for Freddie Macaron, but I was basically a drum tech roadie. So like I'd set the whole stage up, and basically I was, and Michael, if you hear this, but basically I was there to put up with Michael's bullshit, because I love Michael with all my heart, and I'm not just saying that right now. I do love Michael. He's amazing, and definitely another man in my music career, because he taught me the ropes, taught me everything. When I was with Michael Nitro as a roadie, we had the biggest shows in the Valley. We were opening for Kip Winger, Bon Jovi, Peter Frampton, Kiss. I mean, this list goes on, like way bigger than anything I've ever done as far as other until I got later on in the career and I started running sound, and next thing I find myself running the stage, thanks to Kristen, running the stage at U-Fest, 2016, 2015, I think. But, and people are yelling AdrenaLayne, and that's what I'm like, they're yelling out to 60,000 people, they're yelling out AdrenaLayne. And I'm like, and I'm standing there on stage going, that feels good. I finally made it. But that was just kind of recently, but
yeah.
So then to progress in the career, stayed DJing. Well, my DJing got pretty big, so same kind of thing. I started DJing for some like DJ AM. I never thought DJing was a part of the music industry. But when you did play the big clubs, I ended up my biggest one at that point was I tried out kind of the same thing as an IT job. I tried out at the Cajun House, and I had to go up against this DJ called his name is DJ Element. He's still around, and he is an incredible DJ. Same thing. I didn't have talent, so I had to figure out how. Here I am. I'm just wasting my time again. And I said, okay, Mark, just be you. And I played the music that I liked. So the music that I liked, even though I wasn't really beat matching or doing a lot of tricks, just playing the right music got the attention of the club owner. He said, that's what I want. And Element was pretty pissed off, and he knew I was a talentless fuck, so I would be pretty pissed off too. But I ended up again faking.
But I mean, that's a really good argument for the difference between talent and like persistence.
Persistence and work ethic. I mean, you gotta visualize. The biggest secret. Every scholar will tell you the secret is visualize you being there. There was a story in the book The Secret that said this gal used to leave her clothes on her side of the closet, so that when he comes, he has his own closet. Same thing. She slept on her side of the bed, left his. I
started doing that because of that book. Like just
again, it can't hurt. Okay, so that's
it works 100%, but it doesn't guarantee like you're gonna have a happy marriage. It just means you'll certainly be, women will be attracted, or whatever you're looking for, companionship.
Well, I knew I wanted to be there. Mm-hmm. I knew I wanted to be on that stage. Same thing. The only thing I had as far as talent was what you've already addressed, is that I can get in front of a crowd and act the fool. And I can talk shit, and if I piss you off, great. But then I'll make you laugh here in a second, Or if you want to go outside and box, I don't care. I'll do that too, I not that I'm some kind of badass, but if it got that way, and it wasn't always fun and games. I talked some trash and I've had to jump in the crowd and literally duke it out on the floor several occasions, But I just had the only talent I had, and everybody would say that, AdrenaLayne this, he can play right, and he can rock the house, but his biggest talent is you will not be disappointed about how he talks on the mic, about how I'd get you to buy a beer, or how and I guess it's just because the certain frequency in my voice, or the way that I talk, or the enunciation, or the way that the phrase is, and radio voice is far different. Like, I get on that mic and start talking, all right, guys, get those dollars ready, your whole voice changes, and you see it in my now, much later, which we'll hopefully we'll get to, is my motorsports career. Now I'm announcing motorsports. In fact, this weekend I'm leaving to announce the AMA Nationals in California. Wow. So my career is kind of kept turning, and progressing.
But constantly going, and maybe that's also another good lesson of like your observing your career, is that regardless of the fact that it kind of jumped from industry to industry, there was always an upward curve. It was never like starting over, like complete resets, like hard failures. Like, there was like little bumps here and there, but it was always up.
The only reset that I've had to reset multiple times as in the bank account. Marita said it to me that night. She says, why are you reinventing yourself? I said, well, I don't know. I've been a DJ and what I'm doing now for years. I'm not trying to reinvent myself. I'm trying to make what I am good at work. That's it.
It's another way of promoting yourself. Podcast is another medium that's becoming popular. That's becoming like a big deal, and
certain popular.
Another way of promoting. Like this. Yeah. I enjoy doing it. I like having interviews, like being able to catch up with old friends and have them tell their story and have a format where they can do that. To be honest, this is the podcast of my band, Evening the Score. Yeah. And every episode in my little 8-minute intro, I'm always just like, this podcast is brought to you by Evening the Score. Check out the new album on iTunes, Spotify. Nice. Like, it's really an engine for me to try to introduce what I do. But I do that, in a way, I'm kind of like on your back right now. Yeah. I'm pulling in your fans, people that want to hear you talk, and I'm putting them in a place where they can't listen to you until they've heard that I do something too. And I would love for them to go check it out. So it's a way to promote.
I have nothing to promote right now. That's kind of crazy.
But you do. It's just whether, you're, the AMA thing, your karaoke gigs. It's a place to start. You'll get other things that you care about promoting, but for now, you certainly have things to talk about.
AMA and racing, though, where I'm headed, there's really no promoting that. There's going to be a set number of people there. There's going to be a set number of people listening. They won't necessarily listen because their announcer's, good or indifferent. They're going to listen because they're riders. They're fans of the riders. Mm. However, what I've learned in that career, and we can address it when we get there, but, I worked for 6 years for Lucas Oil out here at Wild Horse Pass, and we had several other venues and stuff. But it came to an abrupt halt because of some political nonsense. And, I'm still friends, and I'm not by any means kicked out or, unfriended or, I'm still friends with the promoter at the time. His name was Tim Jones, and I'm still friends. And I walk in, and people just constantly say, "Mark, we miss you. We miss your energy. We miss the way that you would talk to us. Because this guy's good, but he's just not like you." So, indeed, things change. But to keep going, so after the DJ happening is that's pretty much where. I maxed out, but Donnie had pulled me into one more band, and he called us Sex Club Groupies, and he started having us. He actually pulled one band that lost their singer, the Robies, and then Elephant Gun, that lost. We lost our tact, and then he put us together, and we just started working out, and it was our best. That was been my best of music. Music. I don't have any of our music, unfortunately, but that was my best musical. Songwriting and because at the time my grandfather passed away, so I wrote a song about it.
Oh wow!
I wrote all kinds of things, but that was my best songwriting talent that we had there. But after that, I got into cover bands because it's kind of a way of doing karaoke, but I could still front a band and still do my thing. And I joined. What was my first cover band? I think we were called 3 from 6. There were some guys out of North Phoenix. There are 3 from 2, 3 from 6. I think they're still in there. But we did Foo Fighters. We did some Foo Fighters. We did some Alice in Chains. We did some Candlebox, Bush. I don't think we did any Soundgarden in that. I don't remember. But we did Fall Out Boy. And we did Bon Jovi. But we were kind of all over the board. We did some Jay Giles. And then, so I was singing with them. And then I got picked up by another cover band that we had made. It was called Menage a Trois. It was me, this guitarist who could sing, and a girl. So we called ourselves Menage a Trois. We had this real good drummer, Bruce McGregor, and I would dabble in bass because being a drummer. And then I'd get back and play drums, and I'd even play drums and sing some of the songs. But so the music career just kind of kept going, and then it peaked again. I mean, we had a good run and grind. We were 4 years, so Grind was together for 4 years
altogether. I guess that would be true. Yeah.
And Grind was just kind of, I was running sound at the Big Fish Pub, and, Victor claimed that he made me one of the owners, but it was just a way that he could get away without paying me.
I don't know if we can talk about this, but this was part of what, me and Kristen kind of just skipped through, because I'm not even sure how much she knows about it, because she was explaining basically the transition between you to her, and the way she explained it sounded like no one else was involved. She didn't, it was as if, when she started working, she was basically working for you. She was, interning under you. And then when you left, she just kind of became you.
Okay.
And I was thinking, but the place had to have an owner that was like the one who was actually. And I don't know. I know you met Donnie through the pub, but I think I had it in my head that you like co-owned it with him or something, and then.
So I'll try to give you the quick rundown on that.
Okay.
That's another story that we sit here in a whole nother podcast. So Donnie started it. He bought it from a girl named Dora, and he started the Big Fish Pub because he was a professional fisherman, and he named it the Big Fish Pub.
Wow.
And yeah, it's pretty cool. And same kind of thing. The Big Fish Pub was absolutely one of the music premier. Probably, I mean, at the time, because Long Longs had just got removed.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely within the 50 miles, well, not 50 miles, I guess I would say, well, I don't know, in that radius, the Big Fish.
I mean,
Pub
if you're
was.
looking for a small punk club in the Phoenix area,
Yeah.
Big Fish is going to be where you're going to go.
Like, I mean, there's been some major things that played it. So I had been going to Big Fish Pub for, up to that point, for 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
So Donnie sold it to this guy, Mark, I believe was his name. And then Mark had these two people, Mama Joe and Papa Joe. And Mark got faded out. And I don't know how this goes. So I just kept coming there, you know what I mean? Because I knew Donnie.
Yeah.
And Donnie and I would meet up there every now and again and have a beer and reminisce about the old Big Fish Pub days.
Yeah.
And Mama Joe and Papa Joe kind of ran it their way. And they ran it their way. That's the best way I'll say it. Well, I would kind of show up there in and out to run sound. Joker was running sound there. I think you met Joker a couple of times. Maybe not. But he was another sound guy that I would kind of learn from it. Then I became the master, and then he started working for me. Well, then he was working there, and then I replaced him there, and through Mama Joe and Papa Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was in there mixing sound one day, and these two cats come walking in, Victor and John, and they said, "Hey, how you doing? You're Mark?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, we just bought the joint." And I'm sitting there like, "Oh, here we go." So I just lost another fucking job, And I had all my equipment in there, and I was running sound, and I was really trying to bring the old Big Fish Pub back.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting it back in. Because Mama Joe and Papa Joe wanted to take it another way. They were doing hip-hop and jazz and all kinds of... And the hip-hop just... I just want to pull what little hair I got out. Hip-hop just... you just have to have the right venue for hip-hop, the right everything for hip-hop, and you just got to leave the attitudes and the OG bullshit out of it. Because I love hip-hop. Everybody thinks because I talk shit about hip-hop that I hate hip-hop. Well, I love hip-hop. I just don't like this knotted up crap that people, saying chewed up bullshit. And I'm so tired of auto-tune and rappers clipping the mic and rappers rapping about, nigga this, nigga that, I'm sick of the same thing, and it's just not hip hop anymore. It's just, and everybody says, well, you like old school, you don't like the new stuff. Well, no, I do like the new stuff. I like the stuff that's good, and that's the difference. There's bad stuff, and there's the same thing over and over stuff, and there's good hip hop, and I like real good hip hop. And so anyhow, when Victor and John bought it, they said, well, we don't want to change anything. We want you to continue running sound and everything. And I told them about my vision. I said I had been here back from the Donnie days. So they did everything they could to keep me there. So they started paying me pretty handsomely. So they put me on a salary. So it was a weekly salary. So when they bought it, it was a good 2-year run. Mm-hmm. And I was there every night. So I basically was running their entertainment. That's how it went down. Mm-hmm. And Chad came in. Wasn't he playing your Foo Fighters band at the time?
That makes sense. Yeah,
so
he would have. That's how he would have gotten into grind.
He had FF on his.
Yeah.
Foo Fighters. So he came in and.
So side note for anybody listening.
Yeah.
I through a story that maybe I'll figure out how to tell some other way. I had put together a Foo Fighters tribute band, basically because I found this incredible drummer. The first time we jammed, we played through some songs and it went really well. And he started talking about this DVD that Foo Fighters had put out that I'd also watched, and they did this this outro to My Hero that was really cool, but just different than whatever. And he's like, "Do you know it?" I'm like, "Yeah, do you know it?" And we played it we just stuck it so hard, and we're like, "Oh, this is happening." So Breakout was born out of that, and that's who you saw. We came to the pub and
So right at that story. So there you go. So here's how you and I get into this. So I was running sound, and there was ups and downs between Victor and John and I. Mm-hmm. And I almost beat John up. Just 20 times because John would just say the stupidest shit to me, and And then the money stopped coming, and then that would start putting a strain on us, and but I was invested.
Yeah.
So then I had opened up my shop again, but then we'll get into that here a little bit later. But after I met Chad playing with you, Chad went and tried out. I remember how excited he was. He said, "Hey, I just tried out for this Alice in Chains tribute band. They're called Grind, and they already had a singer, and they had the founder of it, Vince. Vince, it was the founder of it, and he found this other guy, and he found Chad, and so Vince was playing bass, and then they had a guitarist, and I forget who started that, but anyhow, then the singer and Chad and everybody else, they just kind of clashed, and the singer went away, so Chad chased me down immediately and said, "Hey, man, you want to come sing for Grind?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'll try out for it and see what we got." And I tried out, and they go, "You got the spot." So, let's just go from there. And God, I forget who was playing guitar with us, but
was it Tom or Chad's friend Tom, like the long hair?
No, so Tom. So there was, I forget who it was, but the guy didn't make it that long. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
So Chad got Tom.
Okay.
And Tom could handle it. He was really good, but he just, when it came to replicating Jerry Cantrell, that's hard. You know what I mean? Although he can pull it off, it's hard. I mean, even me replicating Lane Staley, I didn't do it perfectly, but I did it enough to sell you on it. And then, like you said, me selling the show.
And maybe part of where, what Tom did came off the way that it did is the way the rest of the band around him was so good that it made his less than performance stand out more in the sense of just not being necessarily up to par with what everybody else is doing.
It's not that he wasn't a good guitarist. He just had a to sing like Lane Staley, you have to do it. You have to listen to everything he's doing.
Right.
And I'll share this with you, but I used to think like a heroin addict would be. I'd have to think like, well, how would I be right now? I really don't want to fucking be here. I'm pissed off, and I all I want to do is go back and shoot heroin, So that's the performance I would give you. I don't think Tom really let that go from and
correct.
Every guitarist we ever had couldn't do vocals. So I mean,
nothing against him, but just because again, I had played with it. He actually played in the Foo Fighters thing for a little bit. He'd been around, and he was a great guitar player.
Yeah.
He would play on stage with a smile on his face. And there's nothing wrong with that, except in an Alice in Chains tribute band. You're right. You kind of have to go to some place where it's gross and depressing, and so it reflected just in his entire way of doing it. And you're right, it wasn't bad, but where the rest of us were kind of locking into it, he was just kind of this glaring corner of it. You're right. And then cut to... I wasn't in the band yet.
Well, so what ended up happening was, and that's what I was getting to, is so what ended up happening was Vince became the one that wasn't holding it. And then we're like, and he's trying to sing, and we get it, and he's doing all right, but then he's missing a lot of licks, what you picked up perfectly. And you at the time, as far as I knew, you weren't even a bass player.
I've never been. I've always been a guitar player. It's just convenient that a bass guitar is a guitar. It's the top 4 strings of a regular guitar. So all I gotta do is stop playing chords and just start playing notes. That's it. So
playing the notes that you're playing the first of every 3 notes.
Exactly. Right.
And so at the time, Tom was in there, and you came in, and then you could sing, and that's kind of was our requirement because we never got a guitarist.
I feel like it because this is one of my favorite stories of Grind. There's only a few that really just make me smile. My audition for Grind makes me smile because I remember when first of all, Breakout had dissolved based on the fact that I just couldn't control some anxiety that I was going through. And one of the we're
gonna bring that up.
It had to do with my divorce, and it just had to do with a lot of my personal life fell apart. And when that happens to you for the first time, you don't have tools, you don't have skills to deal with it. You're white knuckling every day. So Breakout, I would just have panic attacks on stage. It was bad news. So I just told the guys, I'm like, I don't want to keep letting you down. This sucks. We're all nervous every single show because we don't know what's gonna happen. Why don't we just call this a day? And when we did that, Chad was just like, hey, I get what you're going through. Maybe if you played second fiddle, what about Grind? We're struggling with this bass player. Maybe we kick him out. Maybe bring you in. What do you think? And I'm like, I'll give it a shot. So I go home, I get a bass guitar, and I just start learning Alice in Chains songs. I was a big fan of the band, but not massive. I didn't know their whole catalog, mostly just their hits and stuff. And so I start learning their stuff, and I start singing the backups and stuff. So all I really know coming into this audition is I'm ready. I'm ready to perform what's about to happen. Let's see how this goes for the rest of the band. So we do it at Big Fish Pub during the day. Yeah. I'm gonna let you tell the rest of the story.
Right. I like listening to you say it, and we could say it back and forth. But no, you killed it. We'd never had.
Do you remember because the first moment is my favorite part where we get up there to play. You're like, what do you want to play? I'm like, I mean, I know a lot of stuff. If there's anything you guys prefer or whatever. And somebody was just like, let's play We Die Young. And we're like, okay, cool. I don't even think you had it in your mind that I was even going to step up to the mic. I think you were just like, oh, he'll probably just noodle through the bass line, see how that works. Yeah. Maybe we'll get to the vocals at some point. And for any of you listening, if you listen to We Die Young, and mind you might want to listen to... there's one that's published as in brackets, it's called an early demo of it. Yeah. That is, in my opinion... reflects this a lot more than the actual album track from Facelift, I think it is. But there's a really tight harmony in the pre-chorus that I was comfortable with as far as just doing it at the house and stuff. And so we launch into this song. I think there might have been a bartender just prepping the bar or something, because it's 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Yeah. You literally did the sound. You literally just got us all revved up for the thing. So nobody's in the bar or anything like that. We're just playing. We launch into We Die Young, and he gets to that part, and I just lock in with the Jerry part. And after we get through it, Mark falls off the stage laughing, just doubles over off the front of the stage on the ground laughing, and we all kind of stop playing. And after he collects himself, he's just like, that was the greatest fucking thing I've ever heard, man. Start the song over. We gotta do this song again.
Well, because that harmony in Die Young, it's chromatic. I'm going high, and we die here, and you're going the exact opposite, and it's perfect. And that's actually hard to explain to everybody that stepped in from Rich to, and when I'm talking about Rick from Trident, he took over after you. But it was so hard to teach them those, and if you couldn't hear it, I would sing it for you, and if you couldn't get it by that time, I would just say, man, you got to practice it, because that's...
I mean, when you get into the Bee Gees, or you get into groups from the past that have sang really, really delicious harmonies, Alice in Chains is arguably one of the most complex harmony compositions of all time.
I don't think you'll get any argument out of that from any musician.
So tremendous. So me stepping into this band, it was... I mean, not to toot my own horn, but it's kind of funny to me how simple it was. I could just hear it. I could hear what Jerry was doing, and it made sense. The dissonance of the harmonies made emotional sense. Kind of like you were saying, where the Lane performance for you came out of the fact that you project yourself into a junkie's head, and that's where the performance came from. With me and Jerry, it was just there's a darkness in that I automatically emotionally connect to, so it was never musically hard for me. I got it.
Well, that's why I say you guys were all way more talented than I was. And the best lineup we had in Grind was definitely you, Chad. Well, Chad's always been in Grind, but you and then we got Rich.
Oh.
And as soon as we got,
I remember the Rich tryout when we were just what just happened?
Oh my god! Do you remember that? Did his tryout?
And just watching him, it wasn't even like he was actually looking at us and
hoping he was doing it right.
He was jerking us off with his eyes while he's playing. He's super intricate. He was just yeah, I just did that, bitch. And we're all just you just did that, bitch.
I'll never forget it, because he'd look over and he'd just kind of go, oh yeah, it's like that. It's like a porn star whipping out his huge cock.
It really was.
Oh yeah.
And every show, he just was over there murdering these guitar parts with no problem. Well, just grace, just over there having a great time.
Remember, he did Man in a Box. I think we did Angry Chair. No, we didn't do Angry Chair. We did
was it Damn That River?
Oh yeah. So we did Man in the Box, and then I remember him sitting there and go, what do you want to do next? He goes, I don't know, what do you guys want to do? And Chad was eating, and he'd go, okay, and he'd click and make sure he's tuned, and he'd go. And I remember, dude, that's fucking great. You played the shit out of that song. I said, and this the second song we played, whatever the fuck it was, I said, fuck man, where have you ever played that song? I'm trying to think, what band were you in that made you play that fucking song?
Yeah.
Or did you just sit home and play it? I never forget it. Terrell goes, never played that song before in my life. What? I just said, what? Yeah, I didn't know that's a. You had the fucking. The solo was perfect. And he said, I'm just an Alice in Chains fan, and I've listened to. And he goes, so then I was thinking to myself, so is that the way this fucking audition's gonna go? Like you're gonna fuck up like 4 more songs, you've never played them, you know? And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's the fucking balls. I said, okay, so we try the next song. He nailed that one. I go, never played that one either. He goes, nope. And I just sat there going, this is fucking incredible. And then I think we barreled him with like 6 or 7 songs.
The irony is, like,
every one of them.
6+ months into the band, I remember we were playing over at, what was it, Musician's Friend, like, right where Club Red used to be, like 101 in University. There was that little, like practice spaces that were over there. We were playing over there, and we'd been together long enough that I think you were just like, hey, why don't we try some stuff?
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay. And you started throwing stuff like, Queen of the Rodeo and Sunshine and stuff that I actually never heard. I'd never even heard the song. And Rich, again, is just like killing it. And I'm like, I don't know this song. Vocals over the bass. It's really
sucks. Chad's back there playing. It's like we became Alice in Chains.
And I'm just it was the moment that I realized, I'm not qualified for this job. I gotta like listen to more songs.
I've never heard Queen of the Rodeo in my life. I heard it once or twice, and then I same thing. I said, okay, I'm in an Alice in Chains tribute band. I'm going to be Lane Staley, so how would Lane Staley do it? And I just owned Queen of the Rodeo.
That was your like striptease song. You had a good time with people.
I love it. I'd walk up to the speaker and hump it. Oh, dude, I loved Queen of the Rodeo. And people, I'll never forget, people kind of look at me and go, is this an Alice in Chains song? I've never heard it, But
I don't even think, is it on an album? I don't know where Queen of the Rodeo is published.
It's on a live album that they played. It played in Texas. And
oh, wow.
I think they did end up recording it, but the main recording of Queen of the Rodeo is from a live show. And they were in Texas. He goes, cause your mom's in the house, and that's the thing. You gotta sing it like, come to find out, Lane Staley's from a rich family from Washington and from Seattle, and that's him and Jerry Cantrell are both from the upper part of Seattle, and they never met each other. Jerry Cantrell was in a band called AdrenaLayne, and Lane was in a hair metal band. I forget what they called it, but he used to wear his hair up and wear makeup the whole nine. But the thing they had in common, they were both Kiss fans, and all those bands from Diamond Lie, Mookie Blaylock, which later on became Pearl Jam, Mother Love Bone, all these bands. They were just such tight musicians, and that's how Seattle became everything. Kurt Cobain, all them, they were all playing in Soundgarden and everything. Soundgarden. Chris Cornell would get together with Eddie Vedder, but Eddie Vedder was from L.A. Eddie Vedder wasn't the singer originally from Mookie Blaylock. Mookie Blaylock. This is just all my understanding, so don't fact check me here, but it's the way I understand it. Mm-hmm. But Mookie Blaylock couldn't become Mookie Blaylock because they got sued by an NBA player. They couldn't use that name. And on their way back, they stopped at a place called Aunt Pearl's Jam. I got that backwards. And that's where they came up with the name Pearl Jam. But then they sent the music to Eddie Vedder in L.A., and Eddie slayed it. So they said, dude, you're our singer. So he jumped on board quickly. And when all those bands kind of ironed out, then the birth of Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Soundgarden, but then there was Temple of the Dog, which was a lot of the guys from Mother Love Bone and Alice. I think not Alice in Chains because Jerry didn't play in Temple of the Dog, I don't think, but I think it was the lead guitarist for that later on became in Pearl Jam or became Nirvana. See, so that's the thing. They all kind of just shuffled around until they found their niche. Yeah. And that's when they found Alice in Chains, as far as I know the story. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of what we did, we kind of, that's why I said we became Alice in Chains for a moment, and it was really easy because, I mean, you can see it in the video of Rooster. That's where I was most comfortable. That's where I felt good with the musicians. I finally became a musician, and that was the peak of grind. It was you for sure. And once we got Rick, and Rick's an amazing deal. But Rick's from Tombstone, Arizona. He's a singer-songwriter, and he wants to be Trident. And he's done an amazing job with his original stuff. And he's always wanted to do the Alice in Chains Unplugged. I don't know if you know this, because I don't know if you remember.
As like a live performance?
Yeah, I wanted to do the Alice in Chains Unplugged video, note for note, feeling for feeling. In other words, set the Oriental rug up, do the
Uh-huh.
candles, the whole nine. Get somebody to sit, like, you would be a perfect Scotty Olsen. But you'd have to do the harmonies because you'd have to have Rich put on a fucking blonde wig. I'd walk out in a t-shirt just like this and black. I'd have the pink wig. That's why we got the pink wig, sunglasses, the whole nine. I wanted to do the whole unplugged show note for note and have it so perfect that we even did it in the time frame.
But that wasn't the impetus or at least the idea behind Tripod Dog. That was something different.
No, Tripod Dog, well, kind of, because Tripod Dog was just, I was lead singer with Ryan, and Shannon started coming into Big Fish Pub quite a bit.
How long have you known him? I mean, that's...
Okay, so Shannon...
I mean, obviously, you've talked to all the famous people that you...
Shannon just started coming in Big Fish Pub. I think he had to do a remote there. I think Victor paid 98 KP to come out and do some remotes. So that's where I met Brett Vesley, Mark Harris, I think is his name. Anyhow, I got Mark's last name in my phone. But Brett Vesley and Shannon, and whether it was they were the ones that we were hiring or not, they would all show up there because, hey, we're hanging out at Big Fish Pub, coming out of here or whatever. So
for any local people in Arizona that might be listening, we're talking about Shan Man.
Shannon Hernandez,
the DJ from
KUPD.
Yeah.
Little Shubman, which, by the way, for people that are listening, Shannon is doing a lot of podcasts right now.
Yeah.
So he's I'm just paying attention to the time because we got a 9 o'clock deal, but we're doing good.
Oh, good call.
We can still rock. Shannon used to just come in and he said, "I play guitar. Maybe we should do some Alice in Chains." And so we would always try to do an open mic, and so Shannon would bring his acoustic guitar and come in, and we'd play Brother. We'd play.
One of my favorite moments. It was one of those random nights at Big Fish. Shannon was there. You and me and Shannon got on stage. I think I borrowed an acoustic electric bass from somebody that just happened to be there. And you two sang. Like, I for once, I could just kind of, like, do my own thing. And it was awesome. And after that, you told me about Tripod Dog. And I was like, we should do this!
Yeah,
I've, like, been mildly pestering him on social media. And I'm like, hey, what about that Tripod Dog name?
He's been wanting us to come in and, well, he's said it before. He said, you should come down to the new studio and we should do some old Tripod Dog. I said, I'm down with that. And, everybody, like Brett Vesley at the time, and Tripod Dog, write it on there. I think Tripod Dog would have been a neat, but see, we just wanted to be the acoustic side of that, but that's when it really hit me. Shannon can't really commit to a deal. I mean, because, he's hung by 98, and that's just the way it is. And I'll go on record to say this. I don't care. And Shannon, if you hear this, then you hear it. But, Shannon and I, we became pretty tight there for a while. And he'd come down and he'd pretty much call me all the time. And, became he just broke up with his girlfriend. So, I was there, and that breakup really shattered him, And then he moved out to Maricopa, and nobody'd help him move. So I'd go help him move. I had the truck, and I was that friend. Then he got this big old fountain he wanted to pick up in Phoenix. So I went and picked it up. But something happened that it became more like a competition between me and Shannon, or something, like who was the bigger star or whatever. I don't know what it was.
In what way?
I still to this day can't figure it out. You know what I mean? And Shannon just... Because,
it feels like he wins hand over fist just being on the radio every single day.
Of course.
Like, how could he even... Well... In his mind, how could he think that you're gaining on him in the sense that,
hold on, and let's think about that.
There's just no way.
What does he do when he's off the air? So let's think about that. So you're off the air and you're done, and if you're walking into a Big Fish Pub and nobody knows who you are, and you're just the guy standing there with long hair and an army jacket, people are going, "Yeah, hi, how you doing? Hey, my name's Shannon," and
So like the non-visual component, most people don't know who he is.
It became to to where I would have to tell people there's Shannon, and we'd go hang out at like Martini Ranch and stuff.
Yeah,
I'd get him in there, and we didn't get him because of him. We got him because of me. You know what I mean? We didn't have to wait, and that's what happened. And
so it wasn't actual fame he was worried about. It was like the social currency.
Well, it was an ongoing joke. Do we tell anybody who you are, Shannon, tonight, or can you be Shannon, my friend? No, this is for real.
Oh,
I can't make this up. I cannot make this. This is for real. And I didn't care that I had. My fame wasn't fame. My fame was because I had so many people in the music industry. They just knew who I was.
Yeah.
They knew I sang for these bands.
Your fame was because you worked.
I had worked. I had played at Martini Ranch for 15 years. Mm-hmm. In bands as a DJ. Donnie would call me. I did Cypress Hill there. I did, like I said, I did Mickey Avalon, which was a great show. Mickey Avalon and Dirt Nasty. I did some others. I don't know why I'm Johnson to Blake, but I did some big shows there, you know, that Donnie would have there. And I would go there pretty much every Sunday night because if I didn't have a gig, that was my party night. That was the night that I could go be, be somebody else, but, just relax. And, man, I'd always get messed up and I'd never have a bill. I don't understand how that happened. I would go there and get so drunk and wonder why. But sometimes I just throw money, and but I guess that's kind of why I liked it. Because, I'm sorry, I did kind of feel like a bigwig. But not because I was famous, but because, the friends that worked there, they would take care of me.
Yeah.
And that's why I returned. But what happened, me, Donnie Johnson, and Donnie, one night I got a New Year's Eve off. So I bought a real nice suit. It's the only suit I own. And Donnie said it's suits only. And when Donnie said it's suits only, you would see on the sites that you'd show up and all your friends are in suits. And I used to love that idea. So when Donnie said, okay, New Year's Eve, I got a table, we're going to do some ecstasy, we're going to do some shit. I was like, yeah. So I'm like, we're partying. And I'm going to get my suit. So I went and bought the suit, a really nice suit from Nordstrom's. And I showed up, and I'm the only motherfucker in a suit. And it actually backfired. They laughed, and it actually backfired on them because, I got all the attention because I was pimped out. But, anyhow, we had a good time. But yeah, so Shannon and I, I don't know why, but it just kind of became a little competition between me and Shannon, I guess. And we just kind of drifted. And it wasn't, we didn't talk for a while until he kind of had to. So next thing you know, Kristen and I, like I said, she was doing monitors, and I was kind of like the stage manager. And next thing you know, I'm the guy you have to talk to before you walk out on that stage. Yeah. So I turned to Brett Vesley and Shannon, you guys hold on right here. And I turned the mic on, hold it to him, you guys wait for my cue. And Shannon's sitting there going, I can't fucking believe this is happening, I gotta fucking, and so then we're friends again,
Yeah.
And, but Shannon and I kind of, and it was all Shannon, I don't care, friends, as far as I'm concerned, will go have ups and downs.
Yeah.
You'll disagree about things, but man, stay friends. Shannon and I went probably a year or so without talking. And I was kind of depressed about that because I didn't care that Shannon was who he was. I didn't care. I still don't care. Shannon is Shannon. His job to me is being a on-air radio person. Yeah. My job was running sound and being I guess my fame is only statewide. People. I tell people to stay on DJ AdrenaLayne. They go, what? I've heard of you. I remember you back in the day of, Club Rio or Big Fish Pub, or I remember all your, some of the accomplishments that you've done. And if they remember one, that's more than. That. To me, that's fame. If you could quote to me one thing I've done, well, that's good because I'm like, I don't even remember that. So
I get the feeling like the transition from DJ AdrenaLayne to DJ AdrenaLayne happened organically and not because of you. Like you didn't start it, you didn't bring it up. How did people come to your gig as a DJ that would have also gone to a grind show? And how did that happen?
So here's what's funny is my main sign in on everything socially is AdrenaLayne now, and the way that came about is it was our first little tour. It was Tom, Vince, Chad, and myself. We went to New Mexico, and it was a great show and a great time. And we were the opening act for Faceless, and Vince just started calling me. So your DJ name's AdrenaLayne, but your Lane Staley. So he started calling me AdrenaLayne. Now, if you know how to choose your words on, you have certain things, Love Bunny or blah, blah, blah. Well, everybody has been Love Bunny. So you got to be Love Bunny 6978 or, that's taken two, so you add a one, But every single thing I sign on to nowadays, there is no AdrenaLayne. Yeah. There is no, so it's stuck. So I have kept it, it's not my new, it's actually an alter. Like if somebody says you're Adrenaline or AdrenaLayne, I'd say, well, I'm still Adrenaline, but it has to be AdrenaLayne it's the alter. It's nickname number 2,
It's awesome.
I would say. But,
I don't think I knew that came from Vince.
Vince coined it. Vince, if you're listening, that's 100% you. But then after that, and this is probably unbeknownst to you, but I'm wanting out of the music industry.
Wow.
I don't want in it anymore. I've had my fun. I've, Marita and I, and hopefully I can call down the stairs, get her up here. But I'm a dad. I have a 7-year-old, and I haven't seen him in a couple weeks. I really got to see him. Hopefully, he can go to California with me. But we got this house. I've got a business now. I went back to building race trucks, and the reality is I can't do both. In other words, I've either got to close the shop and stay in music, or I've got to kind of get rid of music. So music now, when I say I want out, I want out, and in the aspect is I don't want to rely on my major part of my income from music any longer. Yeah. I want it to be the shop. I want it to be through the AMA and through my motorsports announcing. And that's kind of how this all progressed. When Grind broke up, I ended up getting a gig at Lucas, and I haven't really done anything musically other than running sound and teaching how to run sound or everything. And for the past 3 years, it's been me and her. And
I mean, you talk about teaching sound too, and it came out a little bit in my conversation with Kristen, which I really enjoyed the tone of the way she could tell the story. But you, and I guess this would extend to all aspects of your life, you would probably underplay the impact that you have had on this music scene in your capacity to mentor. Because Kristen, just expressed an interest in doing it. You took it under your wing, and she, to your point, took the things that you showed her and just went way far beyond that. As far as I go, the more that we were together playing in Grind and stuff, I before Grind had happened, I'd build a home studio and stuff and was recording and stuff. And so I was interested in sound and just how things worked and stuff. And so I would just kind of follow you around because you would set up a lot of our gig. We'd play at the pub and you'd just be the sound guy for that night. Yeah. And so you'd see me following you around. You'd just be like, hey, grab that cable right there. Hey, let's go ahead and plug that in there. And before you know it, I'm behind the board with you and you're teaching me how things work. And then for one night, and it was so fun, but also it was the moment that I realized it's not something I wanted to do. You gave me the pub. You were just like, all right, you're going to run sound this night. We got a hip-hop act coming in, which, fuck you, by the way, for putting me through that. Hip-hop and there was an opening band or some joke. But I remember that, and maybe this goes back to, when you had taken that computer class in college, and then before you know it, you're being offered the job to teach the class, your capacity to express ideas in a very relatable way is insane. Because I spent my whole life looking at EQ as a way of, pumping up the sound, pumping up the volume. And you used the smallest analogy. You said, EQ on a mixing board is a fire extinguisher. That's correct. What you are trying to do is you're trying to find the places where things are too hot or where the feedback, whatever's coming through, this is your way of pulling that down, getting it out of the way. And it's changed everything. It's changed the way, now I have my little amp and my little thing, my PA that I do the Gotham gigs with. The way that I sound is based on the fact that I don't look at it anymore as how do I make the sound richer? It's what do I need to take out that will enhance the sound?
And there's two ways of thinking about that, and it's changed, and I can show you on that, even that EQ right there. But let's say you start at what we call nominal. You always see it on
everything at 5, everything straight up.
Well, it's about 2/3. Nominal is where you're gonna you still have some headroom. But you can still have enough to pull out. And again, if it's at 2/3, that's telling you the majority needs to come down, not up. So if you let's just call 12 o'clock, 50-50 the starting point. Well, if you sweep your highs and you don't have enough lows, then you can boost. You see what I'm saying? Because you have to think of it as a ratio between those two. Is the bright too bright, or vice versa? Did I turn the bass up and I still don't have enough highs? Well, you don't want to crank your highs more. You want to turn the bass down, because now look what happens. Here's your highs, but now I need more highs, so you turn the bass down. Well, now you just gave it another increment. So you have to get it's a delicate dance, but I always tell people start at 12, because very rarely, and the only things you're going to boost, very rarely you're going to boost highs. Because nobody wants to, they go, oh my God, it's so tinny. Yeah. Tinny is the one that'll make people make this face.
Yep.
Okay? Mid-range will make the people make this face. God dang, it's so hard, it's right here. And bass is the one that goes, it's too much bass! And the reason why people go, it's too much bass, is because, you know, I mean, I'm guilty in this house. You go downstairs, you got speakers that are 8 inches, you got these speakers.
Yeah.
Well, but exception of these, because these produce a lot of bass. As I told you, they're two-way speakers.
Yeah.
But most speakers don't produce bass the way it's supposed to be played, the way the artist intended that to be. Because if you listen to, like, even hip-hop, for example, they want the low lows, the rich lows. And lows are what gives a song presence. Lows and mids, or low, you know, mid-low. That's what gives a song presence. The highs are just what gives it this clarity. You know, from about 1,000 up, it gives its clarity and gives it separation and gives it, you know, not richness. It gives it a, you know, it just gives it a thickness. You know, because you have to round off the spectrum, and you know that's what, in my opinion, that's why dubstep is so. You brought that up earlier. You know, dubstep has a lot of the frequency spectrum covered.
Yeah.
And if you look at a waveform in a dubstep song, it is all over the place.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you have a lot of peaks and valleys, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, in my opinion, you know, I think bands like Pink Floyd understood that. You got to enrich the whole spectrum of frequency to really be a good band. You know, Roger Waters wasn't a smoking soloist. That the songs, if you think about them, they're no Oingo Boingo. You know, they're not writing orchestra riffs and changing up and doing all the things that Oingo Boingo does. But you know, if you think about the songwriting of Pink Floyd, that it takes you on a journey. Same like bands like Dream Theater, you know, any of the bands that play the, you know, Rush, that play the change ups and switch ups, you know, you got to cover the frequency. But yeah, absolutely. Rule number one: think of a EQ as an extinguisher, not a booster.
Yeah.
And when I see somebody boosting, you know, I'd say rule one as far as EQ. Rule number one in its rawest form is signal processing, and that goes back to what we started off with when we talked about EQ. Highs and low impedance.
Mm-hmm.
I know several sound men that cannot tell you the difference between gain or trim and your slider. I've heard people say that your gain is just another volume, so I can turn this a little, it makes this one a little harder. No. A mixer sitting in the raw, if it didn't have a trim or a gain, has different levels coming into it. For example, what's louder, that acoustic guitar or that electric?
Well, depending on the amp you close.
Depending on the amp, but just
by
for sake of
themselves, the
conversation,
acoustic.
right?
Yeah.
Well, by itself, yes, but okay. But if I plug that even to that little amp there,
Yeah.
and turn it up to 3 or 4, which one's louder?
Probably the amp.
Probably the amp.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the point. Bass guitar through an amp, because it's bassy. What's louder, that or a guitar? So and guitar is hard to use as the reference because you get what's called loud. This is a absolute phrase in sound engineering is loud guitar is complex. Plain and simple. Dude, could you turn me up? Well, you know, that's the guitar saying, I want my solo to rip above everything, you know, and that's fine. That's fine. Get your overdrive pedal. When it's your time to fucking shine, hit that fucking overdrive pedal and wheel.
Yeah.
When it's done, click it and get back into the groove, you know.
Yeah.
You have no idea as a sound engineer how many times the guitar is not even in the mix. You can mute the fucking channel because the guitar amp is louder than the whole fucking band going through a PA.
Yeah.
Now tell me how a fucking guitar is louder than a drum, a bass, and a fucking vocalist. You know what I mean? And you try to tell the guitars 100 fucking times. Once we get your levels, stay there. Don't fucking turn them up. You want to be overdrive during your solo, then turn your fucking overdrive pedal up, and let's hear both dirty and clean, or let's hear how that works.
Yeah.
But that's the hardest thing. And if you get the right guitarist that trusts the sound man, well, what's going to happen is as soon as you go to solo, I'm going to fucking sink your volume level. So with that being said, to get back to gain and volume, the bottom line is each instrument has different levels sitting there playing with no amplification.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is when you look at your mixer, your sliders for an ultimate mix would be flat across the board at 2/3. So that means your gain levels are going to be different, taking up the volume that, for example, that acoustic guitar can't produce. You know, if I plug in, I have an acoustic pickup right now that we can put in that guitar, and it turns it into an acoustic electric, but it's still very quiet. So I have to boost the gain so I can get to that nominal place on my slider. So it's very simple. Gain is input, the slider is output. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. And I have seen engineers not be able to tell me that. I have seen engineers not be able to explain to me the difference between an XLR and a quarter inch or RCA. Are they the same? You know, and those are sound 101. Now that we're done with all that, I've been wanting to comment on the whole Kristen story since you interviewed her last night.
Okay.
And then we could take a break if you want to pause something because I want to get a break.
I do want to play a few couple
let's play some
Alice in
songs.
Chains songs.
I think it's time to do that.
Let's do the
So
Kristen
let me
thing.
finish the Kristen thing, and this pretty much it in a nutshell. Because at this point, I'm doing announcing now for motorsports, and that I'm trying to get back into racing. Yeah. So now music has kind of become my hobby. And Marita, my girlfriend, she is kind of discovering music. Mm-hmm. So I love not discovering music. She knows more about music. I'm just gonna tell you right now. I made a career of it, but that girl knows more about music. She knows way more songs than I do, way more bands than I do. I don't know how she does. She can hear a song 3 times and know every word to it. I don't know how the fuck she does that. Yeah. She knows way more than I do. I just was able to turn mine into a career. So yeah. But Kristen, the way she came, she's in her band Miles to Nowhere. It was her and at the time her husband and this very, very metro drummer. How about that? You know, I don't think he was gay, but he was just very metro. Yeah. So they were punk, but I think Kristen nails it the best when she says that we're galaxy punk. Now that kind of levels it because hardcore punk. There's no word galaxy in hardcore punk. So she's not really hardcore, but she's punk, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. She's like I'll say a milder version of Blink-182. Yeah. That plays same kind of riffs, same kind of things, but she puts her and I think it's
like Everclear with a little stank
there
on
you
it.
Go.
Like it's kind of
I think it's great. And
nice.
So here's how I met Kristen. So Guido, I don't know if you remember Guido, but he's actually still working with me. So he was this promoter. He did a metal show. At least I think he was the promoter. Anyhow, I'll just say I think he was the promoter. But he had this great metal show, or whoever had it might have been Kim Leroy. I forget who had this great metal show. And he actually did a great job. And metal shows are just like hip hop because you got all these metalheads that are they're just metalheads. I don't want to say they're assholes. I don't want to say they're just metalheads, and they just are different. Even if they're smart and they're metalheads, they're still metalheads, and they just treat things different. They throw mics on the floor. They spill beer. They don't give 2 craps. It's just kind of the social skills they're lacking. Yeah. Well, anyhow, seriously, probably between 100 and 120 people in the bar. Okay, I'll say 80 to 120 people in the bar. And great metal show, just got done. And next thing you know, there's this little girl standing there next to her amp, and her husband sitting there, and he wasn't much of a big guy either, cool cat. I liked him. Cool cat. And they showed up in their van, and they set up. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this metal band kind of different, And I'm talking to her, and Kristen at the time didn't really have she didn't have a presence on the scene that she does now. I mean, she has by far surpassed my sound career, and I mean, good for her. Yeah. And I mean, seriously, good for her. Yeah. And so how it happens, and that's still kind of a win for me because you're right. I kicked the door open. I never said I taught her everything. I just I kicked the door open for her, and she has taken me on her. I always wish she would have taken me more because I probably would still be doing it to this day. But I think I made a lot of my mistakes, and we can go into that again in another podcast. But Kristen got up on stage. Because this is a great story. She got up on stage and she does sound check and she checks the mic and she's got this little timid voice and I'm like, oh fuck, what am I gonna do now? Like I'm at a metal show. I was trying to mix her the best I could and I looked over and I'm like, these fuckers are gonna eat this little girl for lunch. Like I'm just like, unless she is like the guitarist for Kitty, she ain't. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to fight all these guys because they're gonna start talking shit or booing, and I'm gonna get on the mic, tell them to shut the fuck up, and then next thing you know, I'm gonna be out in the dance. And that happened many times at Big Fish Pub. I'd literally be fighting the crowd, and I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. So I started drinking, and she was the closing band. Yeah. So she played, and her music, I mean. It was good, but it was rough, but it was definitely all her music, and it was. I thought it was great. And I thought she did a great job, and as she played at Big Fish Pub more and more, she started getting angry. And fuck you guys, and then she fucking played. But anyhow, the very first show, she played, and when she got done, I walked up to her and I said, "Wow, what's your name?" She said, "Kristen." And I'm like, I can't believe they actually felt her. She won the crowd over somehow, some way, and she did it. And she played the music, and nobody booed, and they were feeling it, and they kind of got into it. She actually was able to get metalheads to sit there and listen to punk for a little bit, and it was pretty impressive. And I said, "Wow!" And I'm wrapping up cables, just telling her, "Wow, fucking you won them over." Yeah. And started talking to her, and she's cleaning up. She goes, "Hey, she goes, sound, man, it sounded pretty good, And I don't know how many gigs she's played up to that point, but she says, I've always wanted to learn how to run sound. Well, at the time, I was kind of coming to the end of Big Fish Pub. I'm just fucking tired of it. I've been there, coming up 2 years, and I was trying to, I had a kid, and I was trying to get my shop running and everything, and I just don't know how to fucking get out of Big Fish Pub. And so I'm there, and she says, I'd really like to learn how to run sound. And I said, really? So I wrapped a couple cables, and I said, well, hurry up and get cleaned up and come on in here and I'll show you the first few things, because one of the biggest things about running sound is cleaning up. She's okay, so she gets all her shit, gets a drummer, helps her out, gets her husband, gets them out in the van. They had its own van, and she comes back in. She goes, okay, what's up? And I go, okay, this is Snake, this is connected to the thing, and I get it, and then we started wrapping cables, and I showed her how to do it over and under. And the Big Fish Pub was pretty simple. I mean, it was just a standard stage, and we had a 30-channel mixer, Mackie mixer. But she sat there and watched me, and I said, okay. And then I said it one time, I said, so I usually start, I showed her how I do the drums at that point and vocals and how it fills up the Snake, and I wrapped it all up, and she just sat there she was just, her eyes were just asphyxiated, and if she had a question, she goes, what's that? Or what does that do? And I said, okay, that's the return back, whatever. So basically I just told her everything that I knew right there, and I said, okay, I'm here every day, so I'm going to leave it on you. If you're really interested, I'll see you tomorrow at 6:30 or 7 o'clock. And I said, if I'm not here, just kick back, or if you want, help yourself, because she can't hurt anything, and if she did, I could rewire it. Kind of see what you learn. Well, I think she called or texted me and says, hey, I'm here, and I said, okay, all right, I'll be there shortly. And I was, I was running a little behind, and I come walking in, and she's sitting at the bar, and I can't remember if she had a beer or whatever. She's sitting there, and I come walking in, and she looked over at me, and she goes, I think I got everything set up, right? And I went, and I looked over at the bar, I looked over the stage, and I looked over at the stage, and the mic stands were where I showed her, and the monitor, I walked up, and I started looking around, and I looked around, and I go, check. And I walked over to the mixer and everything, and make sure everything's right, and I go, whoa, looks like you're a little more interested than I thought. And I go, okay, well, let's keep it going. So she was there as often as she could if she didn't have a show or if she wasn't doing her thing. But she lived, the challenge for her is she lived up in Scottsdale, so she should have to come all the way down. But she did, and so Kristen became a staple of Big Fish Pub, as like you said, as my apprentice. And after a while, I would just start throwing her shows. Then I would just say, hey, I'm not going to be here tonight, so the pay's yours, and she would do it. And then finally, John and I had our last fallout at Big Fish Pub. Like I said, John was Victor's, like if you could picture it, John was Darth Vader and Victor was the Emperor, and so if Victor didn't want to confront me, he'd have John do it, and I'd say, and then instead of beating up John, I'd just call Victor. So this is the way it's going to be? You want me to beat up John? I'm mad at you, not him. And it's you not fucking coming through. So, but so one night John came to me and said, okay, so hey, you're paying for your drinks now. And I said, oh, I'm paying for my drinks when you guys fucking owe me a lot of money? I was like, no, that's not how it works. And I remember looking John right in the face and calling Kristen. I said, Kristen, get your ass down here. She goes, why? I go, because I'm walking out. I'm done. So if you don't come down, now's your chance. And she come walking in. She goes, all right, I got it. And I said, all right, high five, love you. I'm out. And I walked out, and that was it. And I walked out of Big Fish Pub, and it was probably a good 6-8 months before I ever walked back in there. But finally, Victor half-heartedly apologized, and I say half-heartedly because I didn't ever really officially address everything. My attitude as well. I'm not going to walk out of Big Fish Pub, and I'm not going to leave my legacy just dangling. So I didn't, and it finally closed and everything. But yeah, Kristen took her career to the next level and just fucking rock and roll. And yeah, she is mixing sound. She's on tour. She's like I said, she got me in at PCS, which what is by far I would think is the largest sound company in Arizona.
Runs one of the bigger recording studios in the valley. Like
her studio is amazing, and
it's bananas.
And like I said, I didn't teach her everything, but I.
You know what she said about it last night, which I found interesting, and kind of echoes, I think, a sentiment that you said a moment ago. She was just like, I feel like. I guess she said it in almost like a regret kind of a way. She was like, I feel like if I would have just picked one of them, I would have been really successful. And I just leaned forward and I was just like, you, in your perception, you can see like money or opportunity left on the table, because I'm sitting back here and I'm just thinking, okay, so your Iration tour every summer, that's just boxed out. That you're gonna go do that, and so if you're gonna schedule people to record, you just schedule them over in this area. Like it seems like you're having all your cake and you're eating it, but in your mind and your heart, you're just like, I could have done better, could have been bigger, could have gone higher, and that blows my mind.
Same thing that I'm doing. You know, it like for example, I got one gig right now. It was last night. It was Tuesday night, and it's a good drive. Well, I didn't get home till 3:30.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't get out of this house till almost 9:30, 10 o'clock today. You know what I mean? In the morning, I should have been at my shop by 8, 9 o'clock. So the thing is, my shop suffers if I'm not there, and that's the thing. So you know, you got to pick one, and you know, there's going to be some changes. I might here in the next after February, I might be in a thing I've never been in. I might not have any gigs at all ever for the first time in 20 years.
Wow.
And it's pretty scary. But all right, let's play some music.
Yep.
Because Marita and I got to go. What song you want to do?
I was thinking we could do like 3. Do we got time for 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to come down and talk to Marita real quick.
Sweet.
And I'm going to grab a beer. And that's that.
And that's that.
You want to come up and sing a song? I was gonna bring my book, but
of lyrics.
Yeah, I still have that lyrics. But if I don't remember the lyrics, I haven't done any Alice in Chains songs since Grind.
Well, in that case, why don't I let you pick?
Well, no.
Because I could probably play anything you can remember.
Right. Well, it's not going to be that hard to sit here and see the lyrics.
The only ones I was thinking of, I've started doing a Just Jerry vocal cover of Them Bones.
Really?
At the acoustic thing.
How does it work?
It's just really like, instead of doing like, you know, instead of making it all like rock and stuff, I'll just kind of open it up so it's more like. You know, and then I just sing.
That's the progression.
I just sing basically all Jerry's parts. And it sounds really like nice. It sounds mystical, it sounds eerie, it's nice. But anyway, I was thinking about you and I could do that, and you could obviously just play sing the Lane parts, and then Down in a Hole, and maybe what is that one?
It's funny with Them Bones that you do it that way, because what's ironic is the only time Lane goes high and does the harmony, but then he jumps back down and does that part. So it's actually right to play it that way.
It's very
because it's saying that
Frankenstein.
You know, Lane normally goes, I believe them bones are me.
Yeah.
Some say we're born into the grave. Then he goes back on, I feel so alone. You know, so it's actually funny that.
Yeah. That's basically what I did. I just tried to separate out the parts so it would make sense with one person. Because I play several Alice in Chains songs out there by myself, but I have trouble figuring out how to make them work with one person.
Well, Them Bones is a perfect example right there of.
But we'll see if it works.
Maybe
I'll record it like I did the other one. Woo.
Absolutely. So I got a whole folder of lyrics. I don't got lyrics. I got lyrics. Okay, I don't know if that makes a difference.
So wait, do you just want to kind of go for them bones and just see how it
Yeah,
goes?
I'm not worried about how perfect it is.
Okay.
You and me, we haven't jammed in years, so we'll play it.
It
It sucks. Who cares?
It has been way too long, and I'm probably gonna be really loud.
Just the fact that you told me the other night on the phone that Chad's been like on you about restarting the band.
Well, he has.
I laugh about that.
Well, and I've said that our only thing we don't have is a bass player, because Rich is like, let's jam. But then Rich gets to where, well, I gotta get played.
That may just mean I'll need to have a conversation with Chad at some point and be like,
yeah.
So how much do you hate me? Like scale of 1 to 10.
Well, wait, what happened? What's that all about? Chad can't be mad at you. No way.
Well, I mean, it may not have come up in conversation because it probably didn't matter to him, but yeah,
What? Why are you having a hard time spitting it up? We're friends. I will never judge you. Go ahead.
No, I guess it's just because, the podcast is rolling and stuff, and I
don't
want to come off like... the podcast is usually me in kind of a silly mood, and it's not something like that's silly to me, but in short, toward the end of their marriage, yeah.
Say it isn't so.
Yeah, no, it's so, and I mean the only reason that I feel like I can even say that right now is that I've talked to Chad about it, and at the time, he was actually very kind. Like, we had a nice conversation about it, and we haven't really talked since, but I was just like, hey, you're really sparing me in this moment, like, grief that I deserve, and so in the future, if you change your mind on that, like, my nose is open to your fist, like, I deserve.
Wow.
But the point being, yeah,
well, you say chin.
I haven't talked to him in years, so.
Okay, I didn't know
with him getting all stoked about that, he'd be like, we should do the bass player. If somebody's like, what about Adam? He'd be like, no, I'd get that, 100%. I'm like, yeah, of course not.
Well, I bet Chad would be okay. And just so you know where I'm at, I'm in no mood to be pro at it, and I don't even care if we get paid.
Yeah.
So
which I prefer your mentality. On that.
If I go sing with you guys, it's just because I want to relive grind again and maybe just see what it's like if I can even pull it off. You know, I mean, I only sing one night a week. I don't practice anymore. Like I said, I'm just kind of.
It would take us all a little while to get back into it, though.
So let's start off with them bones, and then you want to do it just a regular way, and then see what we can do. Those are the words right there. I can see them clear across here. So
you ready?
That's good. Them bones on me. So I think I'm off. I think I'm way off.
No, maybe like a little bit.
I was way off.
Yes. You were like right under it.
Yes, I
still sounded
good. The problem is if we were in practice right there, I would have said no. Start over.
Right.
So just hit the note again. I believe. Yeah, you're right. All right.
Try it again.
From the top. I believe them bones on me. Some say we're born into the grave. I feel so alone, gunning up a big old bag of them bones. Does rise right on over my time. Empty fossil of the sea. I feel so alone, gunning up a big old bag of them bones.
We'll cut it short for the guitar solo.
bad dream come true. I did go under red sky. I feel so alone, running up a big old bag of them. I feel so alone, running up a big old bag of them. I feel so alone, running up a big old bag of them bones. Too bad. It's weird. What's weird is not hearing the bass.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we said one might suck. That was there. It was.
It was starting on that one. It was just like a huge roll of the dice, and it's fine.
That's all right.
The next two we're probably gonna crush.
Yeah,
Is my guess.
we never said. Wait, what's the next one?
Down the hole.
Oh, that one's easy. Let's do a. Well, I don't know. I guess we can just go for it.
And then what is that song called? The
That's a nice guitar.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I just get to comment on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome to come in and sit down, baby.
You can.
That's right. We even had a.
I got my dishes all done. There was a shit ton.
I'm getting ready to shower and we'll order an Uber and we're out.
That's right.
After
We're so almost done. If you know any of these songs that can add a third layer,
Please do.
bring it.
I just wish that he could hit the note right. He's downstairs going.
What's funny is I was
It's been
singing
so
and
long,
all I
yeah.
can think about Marita's down there going. I swear to God. See, the reason why I know I got the right one is and since we're still recording,
Honesty.
we connect. Yeah, honesty, and we connect, and and when you know it, and you're 100% honest and everything, and I'm sitting there, oh, we gotta start that one over, and I almost said, I know you're listening. We'll do a better job, and we still didn't do it that good. But, right.
This one's gonna be better. I believe it.
He inspired me to sing and to start singing and to learn to play and move forward with my
Just
creativity
endlessly
there.
inspiring people. That's what,
Yeah.
that's what you
Well,
do.
if
It's how you be.
I got to one person, it's good enough. But I adore Kristen. I think she's amazing. But the real payday is her because the best. Can emotionally talk about it.
Oh gosh.
Is first time I saw her on stage playing. Oh, it was fucking awesome when she grabbed her guitar. I mean, her first song was like, yeah, it's all right, but you gotta get it out of your way. And,
Yeah.
it was fucking amazing. And
Oh, that was the open mic with Showy
Mhm.
there at Devil's Advocate.
Wow.
Yeah, I did 3 songs.
Mm-hmm.
I only know 4.
Yeah, but she did much better at the second song, and then I got to play with her. I played the drums with her.
Oh gosh, that was such an experience.
Yeah.
You find a lover and you have those moments where you're like, oh, you're so sweet. Then you find a lover where you turn around and you're like, holy shit, you're on the same level as me right now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're higher than any drug can take you,
Yeah.
and your hearts are just like, and then you just leave with that, and it carries you. It's just so it's romantic. It really is. It's beyond anything that I've ever experienced, for sure.
I agree. It's.
And I'm not red because I'm blushing. I'm red because
Red because you're sunburned. I'm over here dying and I'm all emotional. I'm really emotional right now. I had a friend pass away. I mean, and I don't think any of his friends will listen to this, but had a racing colleague that was he was my Mark Wright in racing. I guess
Wow.
kind of a good way of looking at it. He inspired me quite a bit. Whether he was an asshole or not, it still got me going. So, all right.
Can you want to sing this song?
Yeah.
Okay.
Want to do it?
I know it.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, here. We
Can the two of you
I
do it?
don't know if we can do
I
the
don't know if we
harmony.
can.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Because I'm all over the place. with
Yeah,
all these
I
styles
would
and
Do you guys
shit.
want me to trade off
You know what's
verses?
really
Do you want to
funny?
play sing the first verse, and I'll just
If
keep
you-
in the pocket of
But isn't
the
there really 3 parts?
Jerry parts?
Not on this one, but it sounds like
There's
two.
that bridge part that's like there.
If you want to join and you hear something, you
Yeah,
say
yeah,
okay.
that, what he
Alright.
said.
And then if you want to take over Adam's spot, just
Do it,
just
do
go
it.
like this.
Touch me right
or if you
there,
wanna-
and I'll just be like,
or if you want to take over my spot, just hold up your hand, and I'm gonna step back and go rock and roll. Or if you don't do it, I'm gonna jump right back in. All right, let's play it. Let's go.
oh, we're gonna crush.
Or if you know the
hearts.
guitar, grab the fucking guitar and play the
I don't
rhythm.
know the song.
Let's do that.
I forgot that you had a camera going.
We
Yes.
did.
Yes.
I do. Here it
I
comes.
didn't even do anything. I just looked up and I was like, oh.
I can't.
Rock and roll.
This is amazing.
Bury me softly in.
What are you laughing?
Do we need a minute? Was it the first note?
Wait.
Yeah, that's it.
Bury me softly in this
That.
room.
That.
Take it easy.
We'll just start right in.
Yes.
Let's go right in. You ready?
Yeah.
There we go.
Hold on. I gotta get my voice relaxed. How can you tell when musician hasn't played? Alright. Alright. Let me hear the note again. Bury me. No. Bury. God damn.
Bury me.
Bury me.
Bury me softly in this room.
That. A whole song of that. Yeah?
I give this part of me for you. Sand rains down and here I sit, holding red flowers in a tune. Down in a hole and I don't know if I can be saved. I've seen my heart, I'm decorated like a grave. I don't understand who they thought I was supposed to be. Look at me now, I'm a man who won't let himself be. Down in a hole, feeling so small. Down in a hole, losing my soul. I'd like to fly, but my wings have been so denied. Down in a hole and they put all the stones in their place. I've eaten the sun and my tongue has been burned of the taste. I have been guilty of kicking myself in the teeth. I will speak no more of my feelings beneath. Down in a hole, feeling so small. Down in a hole, losing control. I'd like to fly, but my wings have been so deep. inside of you. Oh, I wanna be inside, down in a hole, feeling so small, down in a hole, losing my soul, down in a hole, out of control, down in a hole, out of control. I'd like to fly, but mommy's been so denied. Yeah, we got a lot of work to do if we're gonna ever record that song again. For a moment there, I got into the groove. And it was cool.
Yeah, in the middle it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Junkhead's my favorite.
I can try it. I don't know. I think I tried it.
Junkhead doesn't
acoustic.
translate to acoustic.
Yeah, it's rough.
What would it sound like?
I think I'm playing it right.
Yeah, you're right. And there's not
Yeah,
a lot of harmonies in this song either.
I think they down
Good
too.
night, the best in a long time. A new friend turned me on to an old favorite. Nothing better than being.
I feel like those are the ones you could do well right now. Just like the hard,
Well,
like damn that river and just.
you remember when Vince turned to me and we nailed Junkhead for the first time. He goes, "You're gonna fucking love playing that song, I promise." And I went, "Okay." And then so I started playing it. Sure enough, that was one where I really did my antics. Like,
Yeah.
I always tie my arm off and
Yeah.
fucking,
Your theatrics on that song.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And he was right. And I turned to him and I said, "Vince, you're absolutely 100%. Junkhead was my favorite song to ever do." What you got
Do you
in there?
remember No Excuses? When you have the
Yeah, No Excuses though is a hard harmony, and I
it is.
if I can do it,
We can try Stay Away, but I don't. It's
no,
the last time we played Stay
there's
Away.
no Stay Away. Wow, that's their Rush song.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
you know,
like way
that's their-
high pitched.
Yeah, that's
Unless
it.
you can bring it down.
We can try Rooster. There's just not a lot of like dual vocal on it, so
No, well, yeah,
it works
well,
acoustically, obviously.
well, let's try No Excuses. If we bail out, we bail out. We
Okay.
bail out.
It's another one I play out there a lot, but I just do Jerry parts. And it
Yeah.
works.
No,
sounds
that
nice.
one-
It sounds smooth.
That's what it's alright. See, that's what I'm saying. I gotta do it. There comes a time, right?
Got no patience to search for peace.
It's alright.
Yeah,
There
that's.
comes a time.
There you go.
Well, that's Jerry's part.
Yeah. No, you got it. You're right.
And
You're right.
then-
You're right. Yeah.
It's alright.
You just the way I'm playing, it's like a key higher than
Well,
that. But
play it. I'm just
yeah.
playing it. Oh, wait, what is the key then?
So it's alright.
Yeah, that's pretty high. It's alright. Alright, let's try it. It's really high. The key I was singing it was the right key, goddammit. It's alright. There comes a time. Got no patience.
I just realized messing you up. I'm not singing with you. I'm supposed to be singing the entire time. Let's try it
That's
again.
alright. I thought you were
I
gonna
think you
join
can
it
actually
somewhat.
lower it if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Sing it down there.
alright. Yeah.
And then so.
I come right in on it.
Yeah, let's sing it. Let's do it that way instead. Okay, so this is gonna be. This is where you were before. It's alright. That's where you were before. This is the right one. Here we go. Let's try it.
not bad, but still a little wrong key.
Pretty cool though.
You
For
know,
a couple of guys that used to do this.
the reality is though, if like I had you amplified, because I know I overpower because I project a lot, but I have to do that now too, just to get the notes that I used to be able to hit very easily. Because when you get older, you just have to push a lot more air. But I could hear that if you and I had just, set up the way we used to record, we'd be
locking it
quickly. Like Rich could pick it up. Chad is, I don't know what happens there. He's a fucking machine. I think in the whole 4 years, I think I heard 4 mistakes that I could point out to him and go, "You remember that one time? It was only one time." But it was, Chad was just rock solid. And when you were playing bass, and so here it is. This is the final thing I'm leaving. This is it. Final story. I told Marita about this the other night. Grind on stage in an old grocery store. We were on one half of it. It was amazing. We were a big band. There were probably only 60 people in the whole place, but we loved it. We came down on a RV. We stayed in it. We were rocking and rolling. We do sound check. Everything's happy. We start to do our show. Adam is to my right, Rich to my left, because I guess we kind of always set up that way.
Always.
So you were stage right. He was stage left. Exit door, stage right. We were playing, and I kind of look out the corner of my eye. Adam is gone. But I still hear the bass. So I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm looking around. I'm singing. I don't forget what song. We might even been on No Excuse. I'm looking around, and I'm fucking the fuck. And I see the door open, and where I could come out and see what the hell's going on. Like during the solo, I ran out. I kicked the door open, and there's fucking Adam playing bass because he had a wireless, and he's puking. And I'm like, what the fuck? And he's just, all right, hold on. And he keeps playing. It was chunky because every now and again would kind of...
His vomit or the...
No. No. The song was chunky. Oh, yeah, that's funny. The song was chunky because it'd be... But he fucking trooped through it.
That's true.
The true story.
Oh god.
And
at some point, I actually was sitting. We drove up in an RV, and it was like, I don't know, 40 or 50 feet back from the venue, and I was just sitting kind of on the thing, and I never went back in because I couldn't get a hold of myself. And we finished the song, and Mark would say into the microphone the title of the next song because I didn't have my set list. He'd just be like, "All right, Wood," and I just start.
I would hope that he hit it. I'd say it, and I hope that he
the whole rest of the concert. That's how it went. I'm just out back dying, and we finished it.
All right, we got to roll out of here. I want to say thank you. I can't wait to hear the edited version of this.
Thank you for coming in and adding such a fun emotional element. Like you guys, we gotta do another one with both of you.
Yeah,
and your story
absolutely.
and stuff.
Some night I would love to do a quick. I say quick.
You should save that for your own thing. Like that should be the first episode of what you do. Is you do just talk.
I don't mind covering it though
awesome.
in both shows. You know, I want to hear this one and see how it goes because I want to see how you're doing it.
Yep.
Certain things I want to do. I'm not saying different or better. I just want
all of that.
I want to see kind of how I want to progress. Yeah, but I bet it's amazing. I bet you're gonna go home and edit some good stuff, and you can feel free to edit out anything you want.
Not gonna. It was amazing.
I don't care one way or the other, and I thought it was cool.
But thank you for coming on. Appreciate it, brother.
I can't wait to hear it. I love you. Hey, and by the way, you know where we live?
Yeah.
This girl's learning. I'm gonna turn around to your music. She's got several guitars. If you want to bring yours or you don't, you just spill your beer, booty. You missed that by an inch. She has several guitars. She has that one. She has another one. She has that
it's
one.
Not very nice. It's
Well,
very nice.
well, they're great. They're great guitars.
Starter
until she gets to where she wants to be.
for sure.
She's gonna also learn how to mix, and because by the way, Engineering 101 is wide open if you want to come over and have questions or bring your computers or see what we can do. If you're having modulation problems or things, what would you do different, Mark? Again, I'm not the best sound guy in the world, but I
kind of are. You're right there.
I've been through a lot.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
Peace.
Bye.
All right, I'm jumping in the shower. I'm jumping in the shower. You can hang out.
No, I'll take off. I got it.
All right.
I got it.